Have you ever stood still amidst the rushing current of life and, in a moment of aching stillness, asked yourself, is this really all there is? Have you ever felt like a small boat tossed about by the violent waves of circumstance, the unexpected storms of destiny? You've strived, you've prayed, you've affirmed only to find yourself right back where you started, stranded in a reality that seems deaf to your pleas. Stop. Take a deep breath, because the truth you are about to encounter in these pages is not some new method for fighting the storm. It is an ancient truth, a secret whispered through the ages, that you are the one who creates the weather. Your life, in all its brilliant joys and silent sorrows, is not a series of random events happening to you. It is a reflection, a sacred mirror, flawless and unerring, that is showing you with absolute fidelity what you believe in the deepest chambers of your soul. This is the first and only key. You do not react to the world reacts to you. We have been taught to believe in the power of our words, our will, our wants. But the universe, in its infinite wisdom, does not communicate in human language. It communicates in the language of frequency. It doesn't hear your affirmations of wealth when your soul is broadcasting the frequency of lack. It doesn't register your pleas for love when your energy is resonating with the fear of abandonment. Belief is not an idea or a spoken word. Belief is a frequency, a feeling, an absolute conviction. This is where most of us get lost. We yearn, we want, we hope. But you do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. You attract the version of reality that corresponds to the truth you have accepted on a cellular level. The difference between someone who merely wishes for health and someone who knows they are healing is the difference between a faint plea and a creative command powerful enough to move mountains. Do not see belief as a passive state. Recognize it for what it truly is. Belief is an active command. Every single belief, whether conscious or subconscious, is an invisible blueprint you send to the quantum field, a clear directive that commands reality on how to arrange itself around you. Therefore, the limitations you experience, the financial lack, the broken relationships, the career stagnation, are not walls erected by the outside world. They are phantoms projected by the lens of your own beliefs onto the screen of reality. You receive exactly what you believe you deserve, be it miracles or resistance. This book is not a collection of hollow affirmations. It is an inward journey, a work of soul-level archaeology to uncover and rewrite the source code of your reality. It is an invitation to look courageously into the mirror, not to judge the reflection, but to recognize the architect holding the blueprint. Turn the page not as a reader seeking answers, but as a creator ready to remember your inherent power, because your only limitation is the one you command the universe to obey. It is time to issue a new command. Chapter 1. The Invisible Blueprint. There was once a man who owned a small garden behind his house where he tended to a climbing rose bush, a gift from a dear friend. He did everything by the book he chose, a sunny spot, watered it regularly, and used the finest fertilizer. But for months the bush remained stunted, its leaves yellowed, and it refused to produce a single bloom. The man grew frustrated, bordering on despair. He wondered, why won't this rose bush grow? Why is this happening to me after I've given it everything? He saw the rose bush as a failure, a betrayal by nature itself. Then one day, an old gardener passed by. He didn't look at the rose bush. Instead, he scooped up a handful of soil, crumbled it gently in his palm, smelled it, and said, "Your soil is out of balance. It's too acidic. The roots cannot breathe. They cannot absorb the gifts you are giving them." In that moment, the man had a revelation. The problem was never the rosebush. The rosebush was merely reflecting the environment it lived in. The cause wasn't external. It lay in the very foundation he had provided. He was the cause. The withered bush was simply the effect. This story of the garden and the rose is a reminder of a much deeper truth, a silent law that governs each of our lives. In a windswept valley where snow-capped mountains slumbered like great giants lived a blacksmith named Elias. He had strong hands and an honest heart, yet his life was filled with trouble. The swords he forged would inexplicably crack. The horseshoes he crafted would easily bend. His forge, though filled with the driest wood, burned with a weak, timid flame, unable to soften the most stubborn iron. Every morning, Elias awoke with a weight on his chest. He would look at his tools and whisper, "Why does this happen to me? Am I cursed? Is it my destiny to be a failed blacksmith?" He believed himself a victim of poor quality ore, of ill winds that blew into his forge, of some invisible force working against him. His reality was filled with evidence for this belief: broken swords, complaining customers, and a dwindling purse. He was trapped in a loop of disappointment where each new day merely reaffirmed the failures of the last. One afternoon, as a light rain veiled the valley, an old traveler with eyes as clear as an autumn lake stopped at Elias's forge for a drink of water. Elias, with his usual look of dejection, handed him a ladle. The traveler didn't drink right away. He gazed at the listless fire in the forge and asked a quiet question: "Does this fire know it is expected to burn brightly?" Elias was taken aback. "Sir, it's just a fire. It burns how it burns." The traveler smiled a smile not of judgment, but of deep understanding. "And what of the blacksmith?" he said. "Does he know he is expected to be the master of fire and iron, or is he deep down whispering to them of his own doubt?" The question struck Elias's soul like a hammer blow. He had never thought of it that way. He realized that every time he picked up his hammer, his mind wasn't issuing a command of certainty, but a fearful plea. "Please don't break." Every time he worked the bellows, he wasn't commanding the fire, but whispering his fear: "I hope you'll be hot enough today." He wasn't speaking to the iron and steel. He was speaking to his own insecurity. He had been broadcasting a signal of failure, and the universe, in its absolute obedience, had sent back the corresponding results. That night, Elias did not sleep. He sat before the cold forge and stopped asking, "Why?" He began to ask, "What did I believe to have created this reality?" And the answer rose from his depths. He believed he wasn't good enough, that he was unworthy of the talent of his father, a legendary blacksmith. That belief was the glitch in the code, the hidden virus that had been running his life. The next day, Elias walked to his forge, a different man. He was no longer a victim. He was the commander. He lit the fire not with anxiety, but with a silent command of conviction. He placed the iron in the flames, not to see if it would soften, but to inform it that it would. When his hammer rose, it carried no hesitation, but the authority of a creator. The sound in the forge that day was not the desperate clang of metal on metal, but a symphony of union of will and matter obeying a single rhythm. The swords that left his forge from that day on were impossibly sharp and resilient. The horseshoes became unbreakable. The fire in his forge roared vibrant and powerful, as if it had been waiting for the command of its true master. Elias's outer reality had been forced to recalibrate itself to match the new blueprint within his soul. The story of Elias is not an ancient fairy tale. It also played out in the life of a young countess named Isabella. She felt isolated in her own palace, convinced that no one in her court was truly loyal. "Why are they always whispering behind my back?" she would ask through tears, believing she was a victim of envy and intrigue. Until one day she realized the real question was, what belief within me is causing me to constantly feel betrayed? She discovered that she was the one who trusted no one. She carried a constant defensiveness, an air of suspicion, and the people around her were simply reflecting the invisible shield she had raised. When she began to debug that belief, replacing it with an openness and a trust in her own worth, she was astonished to find genuine smiles and frank conversations appearing all around her. The atmosphere in the palace changed not because others had changed, but because her own narrative had changed. The law of reflection. These stories reveal a fundamental law of the universe. The outer world is nothing more than a mirror, offering a perfect and impartial reflection of the deepest beliefs we hold within. We are not the result of our circumstances. Our circumstances are the result of us. Life is not something that happens to you, it is something that responds to you. Belief is the blueprint, the source code. Your external reality, the people, events, and conditions, is the structure built from that blueprint. To believe only what you can see is to lock yourself in an invisible prison where you constantly recreate the past. To break free, you must dare to believe in what you have not yet seen. Belief does not require evidence. Belief creates the evidence. The universe is not a demanding king from whom you must beg for favors. It is a faithful servant patiently awaiting a clear directive. When you change the directive, your core belief, it has no choice but to comply. That is the law. You are the narrator, your inner voice. The frequency of your beliefs, feelings, and expectations determines how the entire story unfolds. Practical exercise: calibrating the blueprint. To begin reclaiming your power as the architect, dedicate a few minutes each day to this simple but profound exercise. Choose an area. Think of one aspect of your life where you feel most stuck or dissatisfied. Career, finances, relationships, health. Shift the question. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" close your eyes, breathe deeply, and sincerely ask yourself, "What am I believing about myself or the world that is yielding this result?" Listen without judgment. Allow the answer to surface. Perhaps it's, "I believe I'm not smart enough. I believe money is hard to come by," or "I believe I'm not worthy of love." Do not fight or feel ashamed of this belief. Simply acknowledge it, just as Elias acknowledged his doubt. Declare the new code. Now create a new belief, a new command you wish to install. For example, "I am the master of my reality. All skills and opportunities come to me with ease." Or "I am worthy of unconditional wealth and love." Feel it as real. This is the most important step. Don't just say the words, feel them. What would it feel like if this new belief were already your truth? Allow the feeling of confidence, worthiness, and peace to flood your body. Hold that feeling for 1 minute. This process requires no struggle, only an open heart. These are the first steps to debugging your inner source code. And remember, the universe is listening. It's waiting for your new blueprint. Chapter 2, The Lens of the Soul. Once upon a time, 2 travelers walked the same path across a great plain. One was a farmer, the other a silk merchant. Suddenly, dark clouds gathered and a torrential rain began to fall. The farmer looked up at the sky, spreading his arms wide to welcome the cool drops of water. His face shone with joy and gratitude. "What a blessing," he cried. "This rain will save my crops and nourish the parched earth. This is life." To him, the rain was a savior. Meanwhile, the merchant frantically pulled a tarp over his precious bolts of silk, his face contorted with anger and despair. "What a disaster," he groaned. "This rain will cause mildew and ruin my entire fortune. This is destruction." To him, the rain was a destroyer. The rain was just rain. It was neither good nor bad, neither a blessing nor a disaster. It was simply water falling from the sky. But the 2 men did not experience the same rain. Each experienced a completely different reality, a reality determined not by the event, but by the lens of perception through which they viewed it. This story holds one of the most powerful secrets of creation. The world you experience is the world you perceive. In a certain kingdom, there lived a mapmaker named Kael. He was given a seemingly impossible task to chart the forgotten forest, a place from which previous explorers had returned only with terrifying tales of shifting paths, mysterious growls, and dark shadows flitting at the edge of sight. Kael entered the forest with a heart heavy with fear. His lens was pre-programmed by those stories. His attention, like a lantern in the dark, illuminated only that which confirmed his fears. A twig snapping underfoot became the footstep of a monster. A gnarled, ancient tree took the shape of a malevolent spirit watching him. The wind howling through the leaves became a ghostly whisper. The map Kyle drew was a perfect reflection of his perception. It was a chaotic mess of winding lines, symbols of danger, and entire regions colored black with the note, "Do not enter the Deadlands." He wasn't mapping the forest. He was mapping the geography of his own fear. And because he believed it, his reality in the forest became exactly that, a confusing, stressful, and perilous ordeal. He was living inside a cage of his own perception, a cage he was unknowingly guarding. Exhausted and desperate, Kyle collapsed beneath an old oak. When he opened his eyes, he saw a thin wisp of smoke rising in the distance. Following it, he found a small hut where an old herbalist was calmly drying leaves. In utter astonishment, Kyle asked her, "How can you live in this terrifying place among all the monsters and dangers?" The old woman smiled, her eyes kind. "Monsters, child, I have been here for decades and have seen only wise oaks that give shade, clear streams that give water, and shy animals that tell me when the rain is coming. This forest is my home, my treasure." She showed Kyle how to look at a thorny bush he had marked as a demon trap and see the medicinal berries it offered. She pointed to a swampy area he had called the Deadlands and revealed it was where the rarest lotus flowers grew. In that moment, Kyle understood. The forest was never cursed. It was the perception of those who entered it that was cursed. They came seeking fear, and the forest, like a mirror, reflected it back to them. The old woman came with her attention set on life and harmony, and that was all she found. Kyle didn't throw away his old map. He spread it out and began to redesign it. He didn't deny the existence of the gnarled trees or the sounds in the night. Instead, he consciously chose a new meaning to assign to them. The gnarled tree became a natural landmark. The nightly sounds became the symphony of the woods. He began to use his attention as a creative tool. He focused on the streams, the sun-drenched clearings, the edible plants. Gradually, a completely new map emerged, not a map of fear, but a map of life and potential. When he returned, he brought back not just a map, but a truth. To change the world, one must first change the way one looks at it. This same truth was discovered by Alara, a potter in a small village. Her creations always had a small imperfection, a tiny crack or an uneven glaze. At first, Alara saw these imperfections as failures. She sold them cheaply, her heart filled with shame, believing she was an inferior artisan. This perception shaped her reality, a life of struggle and low self-confidence. Then one day, a wealthy traveler passed through. He didn't choose the perfect pots. Instead, he picked up a vase with a strange streak of discolored glaze. "I have never seen such a unique piece," he said. "This streak makes it one of a kind. It is not a flaw, it is a signature." That single sentence changed Alara's lens forever. She began to see her flaws not as mistakes, but as marks of distinction. She consciously assigned them the meaning of imperfect beauty. She started giving these pieces names and telling the stories of how the crack or streak came to be. Her reality shifted miraculously. Her unique pots became famous and sought after. She didn't change how she made pottery. She changed the meaning she assigned to her work. The law of perception. These stories illustrate a foundational law. You do not live in a fixed, objective world. You live in the world constructed by your perception. To change your perception is to change reality at the most fundamental level. Events are neutral. The story you tell yourself about them is what creates your emotional state and shapes your life. Your default perception is an installed program, but you are not the program. You are the programmer. You have the absolute power to question, delete, and rewrite outdated lines of perceptual code. Your attention is your most powerful creative currency. Whatever you pour your attention into will sprout and grow. Gratitude, therefore, is not just a virtue, it is a strategic tool for directing your attention toward what is working toward abundance, thereby multiplying abundance in your reality. Mastering your perception is step 0, the foundation for all creation. Practical exercise. Choosing your lens. Begin redesigning your reality right now with this exercise. This is not about denial, it is about conscious mastery. Describe the neutral event. Choose a situation in your life that is currently causing you stress. Write it down as objectively as possible, like a camera recording a scene. E.g., my colleague received praise from our boss in the meeting, instead of my boss ignored me and only praised my colleague. Identify the current lens. Now write down the story or meaning you are automatically assigning to this event. E.g., this means I'm not valued. My work isn't good enough. I'll never get promoted here. Honestly acknowledge the feeling this lens creates. Sadness, anger, helplessness. Design new lenses. This is the creative step. Write down at least 3 other possible stories or meanings that could be assigned to the exact same event. You don't have to believe them yet. Just list the possibilities. E.g., perhaps my colleague really needed that encouragement today, or this is a great opportunity for me to observe and learn what is being valued, or this single moment does not reflect my total worth. It's just one moment in one day. Consciously choose and focus. Read your new lenses and select the one that brings the greatest sense of relief or empowerment. Choose it on purpose. Close your eyes and ask yourself, if I truly saw the situation through this new lens, how would I feel? How would I act? Focus your attention on this new perspective for a few minutes. By practicing this, you are shifting from being a prisoner of your perception to being a designer of your perception. You are taking the first and most critical step toward becoming the creator of the world you wish to experience. Chapter 3. The Energetic Signature. In a small luthier's workshop tucked away on a cobblestone slope, an old master was teaching his apprentice how to craft the perfect lute. After weeks of tireless work, the apprentice completed his first instrument. It was visually stunning, made from the finest wood, its lines utterly flawless. But when he plucked the strings, the sound it produced was flat and lifeless. Disappointed, he tried retuning the strings and checking every fret, but all his efforts were in vain. The master observed in silence, then slowly walked to a corner of the room where another identical-looking lute rested. He didn't touch the student's instrument. Instead, he gently plucked a single A note on his own. Something miraculous happened. Across the room, the A string on the student's lute began to hum softly, vibrating with a clear tone, though no one had touched it. The apprentice stared at his master in amazement. The master smiled and said, "Do you see? You cannot command a string to sing. You can only create a compatible frequency and invite it to resonate. Reality is the same. It doesn't respond to your demands. It responds to your resonance." This lesson in resonance holds the key to understanding the true language of the universe. Isolde lived in a small fishing village where the cold sea winds seemed to strip the world of all color and warmth. Life was gray and monotonous, but in Isolde's mind there existed a brilliant vision. The Sunstone City, a legendary place with towers of golden stone where art and laughter filled every street. Each day, Isolde sat at her loom and tried to weave the image of her dream city. Her thoughts were clear and detailed: the bustling markets, the street performers, the honey-gold sunlight stretching across the plazas. This was her electric signal, the detailed blueprint she sent into the universe. But as her hands moved across the threads, her heart was heavy. She felt the deep chill of the room, heard the wind whistling through the cracks in the door, and felt the loneliness of her reality. Her emotions, her magnetic signal, broadcast a message of coldness, longing, and vast distance. Her thoughts and feelings were not in alignment. She was sending a blueprint for warmth, while her heart was emitting the energy of cold. She wanted abundance, while her entire being was an embodiment of lack. As a result, the tapestries she wove, while technically beautiful, were missing a life force, like a body without a soul. And her reality remained unchanged, frozen in the grayness of the fishing village. One day, a mysterious traveler who called himself the Windwalker stopped in the village. He looked at Isolde's tapestries and didn't speak of her technique. He only asked one question: are you trying to create something you do not have, or are you expressing who you already are? Isolde didn't understand. The traveler explained, the universe does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you are. The vast energy field out there doesn't hear your plea. It only recognizes and amplifies your energetic imprint. To get to the Sunstone City, you cannot chase it. You must become a citizen of it right here, right now, on an energetic level. Those words changed everything. Isolde understood the pivotal lesson. She wasn't trying to attract something from the outside, but to become the version of herself who energetically already possessed it. She stopped waiting. She began to broadcast with intention. Each morning, instead of sighing at the cold, she would close her eyes and actively generate the feeling of warm sunlight caressing her skin. She would breathe in and feel the joy, the creativity, the connection, as if she were already strolling through the city's plaza. She was calibrating her internal frequency to match her desired reality. When she sat at her loom, she no longer wove with longing. She wove with the joy and gratitude of someone recounting the beauty of her homeland. Her thoughts of the city electric and her feelings of abundance magnetic were now in perfect alignment, creating a powerful and coherent electromagnetic signature. Her tapestries transformed. They became vibrant and radiant, emanating a warm and magnetic energy. The villagers felt the change in her too, a light that shone from within. Then one day, a large merchant ship, blown off course by a strange storm, was forced to take refuge in the village's tiny harbor. The captain, a man from the Sunstone City itself, happened to see Isolde's tapestries hanging in front of her home. He was stunned. "Incredible," he exclaimed. "These don't just depict my city, they have captured its very soul." He bought all the tapestries for a handsome price, and more importantly, he invited Isolde to sail with him to the Sunstone City to become one of its official weavers. Her external reality had been forced to rearrange itself, sending an entire ship through a storm to catch up with the energetic signal she had become. She had not sought out her world. Her world had come to find her. The law of energetic coherence. The foundation of reality is not solid matter, but a vibrating field of energy. You are a creative observer within this field. The very act of your focused consciousness, energized by your emotions, selects one possibility from the infinite and collapses it into a tangible experience. The formula for communicating with the universe is thought, the electric blueprint, plus feeling, the magnetic charge, equals your energetic signature. When these two elements are coherent, you create a powerful signal that the quantum field cannot ignore. It doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to your state of being, who you are. Therefore, manifestation is simply the process of tuning your frequency to become a vibrational match to the frequency of the reality you desire. You are the broadcast tower, and the universe is mirroring your signal back to you in real time. Practical exercise. Calibrating your frequency. This exercise helps you shift from a state of wanting to a state of being. Practice it in a quiet space. Define the blueprint thought, close your eyes, and clearly define an experience you wish to create. See it in your mind's eye, simply like a single photograph. For example, a picture of you looking healthy and vibrant, or an image of you in a loving relationship. This is your electric signal. Ask the key question. Now ask yourself, what would the version of me who is already living this experience feel like? Don't think, feel. Is it a sense of safety, freedom, love, peace, joy, or confidence? Pick one or two of the most core emotions. This is your magnetic signal. Embody that energy. Now temporarily let go of the image. Your only job is to generate that emotional state in your body right now. Breathe deeply and allow the feeling of peace or joy or confidence to flood your system. Don't try to get it from somewhere. Generate it from within. Let every cell in your body be bathed in this emotional frequency. Broadcast your signature. Hold this emotional state for a few minutes. You are not pleading or hoping. You are it. You are broadcasting a clear and coherent, energetic signature into the field, a silent declaration that says, "This is who I am now." Release and act on inspiration. After you finish, let it go and go about your day. But pay close attention to subtle nudges, sudden ideas, or synchronous meetings. This is the universe beginning to send the bridges, the ships, and the resonating lute strings that match your new frequency. You are an energy architect. Once your internal signal changes, your external reality must follow. It is the law. Chapter 4. The Invisible Sculptor. In a vast stone courtyard, an old sculptor was teaching his son the trade. Before them stood two enormous identical blocks of hard granite. The son, full of youthful impatience, swung a massive sledgehammer and struck his block with a thunderous blow. A deafening crack echoed through the yard, but all he got for his effort was a few tiny chips and an aching arm. He tried again and then again, but the great stone barely yielded. The father said nothing. He simply pointed to a corner of the yard where a wooden awning had a hole in its roof. From that hole, for many years, water had dripped onto a similar block of granite below. Right at the point where the water fell, a smooth, round hole had been carved deep into the hard stone. The father placed a hand on his son's shoulder and said, "Power lies not in the mightiest blow, but in the most persistent drop. Your subconscious mind is like this granite. It is not convinced by a single effort, no matter how logical or forceful. It is shaped by persistent repetition until the new becomes familiar." This truth of the water drop and the stone holds the secret to reprogramming the deepest blueprints of our lives. Lord Ronan inherited a barren and impoverished land. His people had lived in lack for generations, and the belief in hardship was etched into their minds like cracks in the dry earth. Ronan was a brilliant and visionary man. He drafted a magnificent plan to restore the land with sound strategies for agriculture and trade. He gathered his people and presented his plan with a powerful speech full of logic and passion. Everyone was excited. A wave of motivation swept the land. But after only a few days, that excitement vanished like the morning mist. The people returned to their old habits, their old sighs, their hopeless gazes. Ronan's plan, though perfect on paper, had failed in practice. He was desperate and angry. "Why won't they follow it? My plan is the most logical path forward." He was trying to use logic to fight a program that had been installed through decades of emotion and repetition. One evening, an old village storyteller, a woman who had seen 3 generations of lords come and go, came to him. She didn't speak of crops or economics. She said, "My lord, you tried to change their minds in a day, but you have not yet changed the song they sing in their hearts every day." She explained that the song of this land was a dirge of poverty repeated daily in every complaint, every resigned shrug, every downward glance. To change the land, he first had to change the song. Ronan understood. He could not get what he wanted. He could only get what was programmed. To change the output, he had to change the underlying program by intentionally repeating a new one. The next day, he gave no more speeches. Instead, he began a new ritual. Every morning at sunrise and every evening at sunset, he invited all the people to the main square. He didn't ask them to do anything. He simply began a simple, powerful chant, spoken in the present tense: "We are fertile land, we are skilled hands, we are an abundant people." At first, the people mumbled along awkwardly, lifelessly. It felt foolish, but Ronan persisted. Day after day, week after week, repetition began its silent work. The new words became familiar. The new melody became safe. The old dirge of poverty began to lose its power because it was no longer being practiced. This repetition was not just a mental exercise. It was rewiring the neurology of every citizen, creating new neural pathways for prosperity. It was establishing a new dominant resonant frequency for the entire land. Gradually, a subtle shift occurred. People began to walk with their shoulders back. They started to see opportunities they had previously ignored. One farmer experimented with a new way of irrigation. A woman discovered a type of clay that was perfect for pottery. Their energy changed first, and their actions followed. Ronan's land slowly came back to life, not because of a single logical plan, but because of a simple song repeated until it became an undeniable truth. This same power helped Brenna, a warrior who was haunted by a single failure in her past. That memory was the program she unconsciously replayed every day, causing her to hesitate every time she drew her sword. Her master didn't ask her to analyze the defeat. Instead, he had her perform a daily ritual 10 times. She would execute a perfect block and counterstrike maneuver. As she did, she had to repeat the words, "I am power, I am precision, I am victory." The daily repetition of small successes and powerful affirmations gradually dissolved the resistance of the old memory. It installed a new program, a familiar feeling of success, into her nervous system. In her next real battle, her body reacted according to the newly installed program, not the old memory of fear. The law of sacred repetition. Your beliefs are sculpted by familiarity, not by logic. The subconscious mind is a loyal but non-judgmental servant. It will execute any command that is repeated often enough with both thought and feeling. Therefore, intentional repetition is the most effective mechanism for installing and changing your reality. You do not get what you passionately desire once. You get the results of the program you consistently run. Repetition not only installs the new, it also gradually dissolves doubt and fear, just as the water drop wears away the stone. It makes a new truth feel normal and safe to your nervous system. Every day you are repeating something, whether you are conscious of it or not. The question is not, am I using repetition, but rather, is the program I'm running today bringing me closer to the life I desire, or is it chaining me to my past? Practical exercise. The installation ritual. This is how you become the invisible sculptor consciously carving your own reality. Choose a single program. Select one core belief you want to make your truth. Write it as a short, positive, present tense statement. For example, I am the embodiment of confidence and peace, or I attract wealth and opportunity naturally. Establish your sacred time. Choose 2 fixed times each day that you can commit to. The 2 most effective times are right after waking up and just before falling asleep, as the gateway to the subconscious is most open then. Perform the installation ritual. Dedicate 3 to 5 minutes to each session. Close your eyes and relax your body. Begin repeating your affirmation gently, either silently or aloud. This is the electric signal. Most importantly, as you repeat the words, evoke the feeling of that belief already being true. Feel the confidence, feel the peace, feel the ease. This is the magnetic signal. Let your thoughts and feelings merge, repeating like a soothing lullaby. Commit to persistence. The key is not intensity, but consistency. Commit to this ritual for at least 30 consecutive days. Do not look for results every day. Trust the process. You are carving a new groove into the granite of your reality. Treat it as a sacred act of devotion to the person you are becoming. Chapter 5. The Fuel of Reality. There was once a shipbuilder known as the most brilliant in the kingdom. He was tasked with creating a magnificent vessel for a vital voyage. He poured all of his mind and talent into the blueprint. Every plank was chosen, every joint calculated with absolute precision. When finished, the ship was a masterpiece, a perfect symbol of intellect and engineering. On the day of its launch, the entire harbor held its breath in awe. The ship slid majestically into the water, but then it simply stopped drifting aimlessly. The sailors hoisted the sails and the rudder was ready, but the ship remained motionless. The bewildered captain looked to the shipbuilder, who was frowning, equally baffled. The design was perfect, so why wouldn't the ship sail? An old fisherman sitting on the pier, a man who had seen 1,000 ships set sail, smiled and called down, "Your vessel is magnificent, but she has no wind." In that moment, everyone understood. The blueprint, no matter how perfect, was only a potential. The rudder, no matter how sturdy, was only a tool for direction. It was the wind, an invisible and powerful force of energy that would actually carry the ship across the sea. In the journey of creating your life, your thoughts are the blueprint and the rudder, but your emotions are the wind. An architect named Liam was given a noble task: to design and build the Library of Peace for a community that had just endured years of conflict. On paper, Liam was a genius. His drawings were a symphony of light, space, and tranquility. He had considered every detail to create a sanctuary for the soul. It was a perfect steering wheel. But Liam himself was a man who lived in constant anxiety. He was obsessed with perfection and terrified of failure. While his mind thought of peace, his entire body was vibrating at the frequency of stress. He was trying to build peace with the fuel of fear, and reality responded precisely to that fuel. The project was plagued by setbacks. The construction crews argued over petty details. Materials were delivered incorrectly. Strange accidents occurred. Though built from a blueprint of peace, the finished building exuded a cold, tense feeling. It had the form of peace, but not the soul. Liam was trapped in a devastating emotional loop. He feared the project would fail. That fear created more problems, and those problems reinforced his fear. One day, a blind old woman, a poet respected by the entire community, came to visit the site. She could not see the lines of Liam's architecture, but she could feel its energy. She walked slowly down a corridor, one hand tracing the cold stone wall. She stopped, turned toward Liam, and said softly, "Architect, your mind speaks of peace, but these stones tell a story of anxiety." Her words struck Liam like a bolt of lightning. He realized the universe didn't hear his thoughts. It felt his state of being. The building and its workers weren't reacting to the blueprint on paper. They were resonating with the frequency he was constantly broadcasting. Liam knew he had to change the fuel, but how? He couldn't just order himself to stop worrying. Instead, he began to practice emotional alchemy. He didn't suppress or run from his fear. Every time the feeling of anxiety arose, he would stop, breathe, and say to it, "I see you. You are simply energy in motion." And then he would intentionally ask, what could this energy become if wielded wisely? He decided to transmute the energy of his anxiety into laser-like focus. Instead of letting it spread aimlessly, he gathered it and aimed it at the smallest details with complete presence. Before starting each workday, he no longer reviewed the blueprints. He would sit in silence for 10 minutes and actively generate the feeling of peace and satisfaction in his chest. He would feel what it was like to walk through the completed library, feel the quiet smell, the new books, and sense the joy of the people. He used his emotions to collapse time, to bring the future into the present. The energy on the construction site changed almost immediately. The arguments ceased. Unexpected solutions appeared. When the library was finished, it wasn't just a beautiful structure. It was a true sanctuary. Anyone who entered immediately felt a profound sense of peace wash over them. Liam hadn't just built a building. He had infused it with the emotional frequency he had consciously practiced every single day. This same alchemy was the secret of Reese, a farmer whose entire crop was washed away by a flood, leaving him with a feeling of anger and bitterness. He could have let that emotion consume him, paralyzing him. Instead, he looked directly at the anger and recognized its nature, a colossal source of energy screaming for change. He didn't suppress it. He transmuted it. He turned the energy of his anger into the decisive power for action. The anger became the strength in his hands as he dug new trenches, the clarity and hump in his mind as he designed stronger embankments. His negative emotion didn't destroy him. It became the fuel to rebuild his life even stronger. The law of emotional resonance. Thought is merely the steering wheel, but emotion is the fuel that moves the vehicle of your life forward. You do not manifest what you casually think. You manifest what you feel on a cellular level. Emotion is energy in motion, the language that the subconscious mind and the universe understand most completely. To change your life, you must actively break the emotional loops that have held you captive. You must learn to become an alchemist, transmuting the raw energy of difficult emotions into fuel for a higher purpose. Don't suppress, transmute. The intense feeling of a thing already accomplished. It is the bridge that collapses time, commanding reality to rearrange itself to match your new state of being. Your future is not written by your fleeting thoughts. It is determined by the emotional state you choose to practice most often. Practical exercise, emotional alchemy. This is an exercise you can practice the very moment a difficult emotion arises, turning it from an enemy into an ally. Name and acknowledge. The instant you recognize an emotion like fear, anger, or sadness, pause. Don't resist or judge it. Simply name it neutrally. Ah, this is fear. I acknowledge you, anger. Acknowledge its presence as pure energy moving through your body. Ask the transmuting question. Instead of asking, why do I feel this way? Ask the energy itself a different question. What power are you here to give me? What kind of fuel could you become if used wisely, consciously repurposed? Make a conscious decision on how you will upgrade this energy source. You can transmute fear into sharp focus. You can transmute anger into decisive action. You can transmute sadness into deep compassion and connection. You can transmute jealousy into inspiration for your own growth. Breathe and feel the shift. Take a deep breath, imagining you are gathering all of that raw energy. As you exhale, imagine you are broadcasting that energy in its new transmuted form. Feel the shift, however subtle, in your body and your energy field. By practicing this, you are no longer a victim of your emotions. You become a master, an alchemist, who can turn anything, even the lead of sorrow, into the gold of growth and power. Chapter 6. Stillness. The source of power. In a small village, as twilight fell, a young boy dropped his precious silver coin inside an old barn filled with hay and dust. In a panic, he began to search frantically. He tossed piles of hay, ran back and forth, and stirred up a thick cloud of dust that made it impossible to see. The more desperately he searched, the more chaotic and hopeless everything became. His grandfather entered, saw the scene, and said just one quiet thing: "Sit down and be still." The boy, exhausted, obeyed. He sat down next to his grandfather on a bale of hay. Together they sat in silence. Gradually the dust began to settle. The boy's heart stopped pounding. His ears grew accustomed to the quiet of the barn. And then, in that deep stillness, they heard a tiny clink from a corner of the room. A passing mouse had accidentally nudged the coin. The boy found the coin not by searching, but by becoming still enough to perceive its presence. The most important answers in life are like that silver coin. They are not found in the chaos of the mind. They reveal themselves only in the stillness. General Cassian was a master of strategy. His mind was as sharp as a sword, capable of analyzing hundreds of scenarios and always finding a path to victory. For Cassian, thought was the ultimate weapon. But now, for the first time in his life, that weapon had turned against him. His army was trapped in a treacherous canyon. Their supplies were dwindling, and the enemy outnumbered them immensely. Every plan his brilliant mind devised led to a dead end. Every logical calculation pointed to a single outcome: catastrophic failure. The harder he tried to think, the louder his mind became with images of defeat. The panic and pressure created a hurricane within, making it impossible for him to hear anything but the roar of his own fear. His mind, once his greatest ally, had become his jailer. In his tent late one night, he saw his trusted aide, a young man raised in a mountain tribe, sitting perfectly straight, eyes closed, breathing evenly. Cassian, in his frustration, snapped, "How can you sit so still at a time like this?" The young man slowly opened his eyes. In them there was no fear, only clarity. "General," he said, "when lost in a deep forest, my people do not run wildly. We stand still, still enough to feel the direction of the wind, still enough to hear the murmur of a stream. We let the forest show us the way." Those simple words rang like a temple bell, shaking Cassian to his core. He realized he was running wildly through the forest of his own mind. For the first time, he decided to give up trying. He ordered all his officers out, leaving him alone. He sat down not to devise a new plan, but to do nothing at all. He consciously chose stillness. He didn't try to push away the thoughts of failure. He simply let them be, observing them as they drifted past like clouds in the sky without getting carried away by them. He was no longer the clouds. He became the sky, the vast aware space that holds everything. As the panic subsided in that quiet space, something unexpected happened. It wasn't a complex plan, but a simple memory that surfaced gently as a falling leaf, the image of an old shepherd he had met years ago who had told him of the secret trails of the mountain goats, ancient paths that appeared on no map. The answer had been there all along, buried beneath the noise of analysis and panic. It could only be heard once the mind fell silent. That very night, Cassian led his entire army along the secret trail and safely out of the encirclement. He had learned the greatest strategic lesson of all. Sometimes the most powerful action is absolute stillness. Stillness was also the muse for Anja, a talented poet who had lost her inspiration. The more she tried to force out beautiful verses, the more hollow her words became. She hunted for inspiration in vain, until one day she gave up. She stopped trying to write. Instead, she spent hours each day walking in silence by the river, simply listening, observing, and being present. She was no longer looking for a poem. She became the stillness from which poetry is born. And then one quiet afternoon, a perfect line simply arrived, not from effort but from allowance. The entire poem flowed effortlessly from that source. The law of creative stillness. The deepest answers come not from more thinking, but from becoming quiet enough to listen. The analytical mind can only rearrange what it already knows. True stillness is not emptiness. It is the presence of awareness, the space where all truth and breakthrough ideas are born. Stillness is the ultimate tool for purifying the energetic signal you broadcast. It removes the noise of resistance, fear, and desire, leaving a clear signal to which the universe can respond. To consciously choose stillness is a declaration of trust. It says, "I am no longer forcing or chasing. I am ready to receive." The source of all great creation is stillness, because only there can you hear the voice of the source itself. Practical exercise. The gateway to stillness. This exercise is not a to-do, but a gift you give yourself. It is the act of coming home. Set your space. Find a place where you can sit quietly for 5-10 minutes without being disturbed. Sit comfortably with your back straight, but not rigid. The anchor of the present. Gently close your eyes. Don't try to do anything. Simply bring your attention to the sensation of your breath as it enters and leaves your body. Your breath is your anchor, keeping you in the present moment. Be the sky, not the clouds. Thoughts, feelings, and sounds will arise. That is their nature. Do not fight them. Imagine your awareness is a vast blue sky. Each thought is a cloud drifting by. Your job is not to chase the clouds away. Your job is to recognize that you are the sky, the vast, peaceful, aware space that holds the clouds. Gently return. There will be times you get carried away by a cloud. When you notice this has happened, don't criticize yourself. That is perfectly normal. Simply smile at that moment of awareness and gently guide your attention back to your anchor, the breath. Each time you return like this, you are strengthening the muscle of stillness. Carry the stillness with you. When your time is up, don't rush to get up. Sit for a few more moments feeling the space and peace you have just cultivated. Intend to carry a part of this stillness with you into the next activities of your day. By practicing this return to stillness, you are returning to your own source of power. You do not need to search for answers far and wide. You only need to become quiet enough to hear the answers that have always been there, waiting for you. Chapter 7. The Soul's Contract. In a town square, a puppeteer was performing a play. The main puppet, a valiant knight, kept stumbling awkwardly just before he could perform a heroic deed. The crowd shouted advice: "Watch your step, tie your shoelaces." The artist skillfully made the puppet nod, trying to stand taller, but it just kept tripping. A wave of frustration rippled through the audience. But a little girl in the front row wasn't looking at the puppet. She was looking up at the puppeteer's hands, and she saw what no one else did. One of the strings connected to the puppet's leg had been deliberately tied shorter than the others. That hidden string was creating the imbalance. The little girl stood up and shouted, "It's not the knight's fault, it's the string." Our lives are sometimes like that puppet. We try to fix our external stumbles. We try to put in more effort, while the real problem lies with the invisible strings, the energetic contracts, the core beliefs we have unconsciously agreed to that are running the entire show. Valerius was a skilled and honest merchant. He knew every trade route and had a keen eye for valuable goods. Logically, he should have been a wealthy man. But in reality, he was in a constant state of struggle. Every time a major deal was about to succeed, something unusual would happen. A ship would run into a storm, a client would change their mind at the last minute, a partner would suddenly betray him. He tried to fix every symptom. He worked longer hours, he negotiated more aggressively, he diversified his merchandise. But the pattern repeated itself relentlessly. Valerius believed he was a victim of fate, that some external force was working against him. He often sighed, "Wealth always eludes me." He didn't know that this sentence was not a description, but a command being perfectly executed. In desperation, Valerius sought out a wise hermit who lived in the city's ancient archives, a man known as the Keeper of the Records. The hermit didn't ask about his business strategies. Instead, he looked deep into Valerius's eyes and asked a strange question. "As a child, what contract did you sign concerning prosperity?" Valerius was baffled. "A contract I don't understand." "Every one of our deepest beliefs," the hermit explained, "is an energetic contract the soul has made, usually unconsciously. And the universe, as a faithful enforcer of law, has no choice but to uphold its terms until the signatory consciously declares it null and void." A memory flashed in Valerius's mind, as powerful as lightning. He remembered his late father, a kind but perpetually poor man. His father often told him with a proud voice, "Remember, son, a rich man cannot keep a pure heart. Money corrupts the soul." To gain the love and approval of the father he so adored, Valerius's young soul had silently signed a contract. "To keep my purity and my father's love, I am not allowed to become wealthy." That was the source code. That was the shortened and string. His entire life of struggle was not a series of random tragedies. It was the perfect execution of a program designed to protect him from being corrupted and losing his purity. The universe wasn't punishing him. It was honoring the contract he had signed. This moment of realization was a terrifying liberation. Valerius was no longer a victim. He was the architect of his own prison. He understood that he was not his father's thoughts. He was the aware space that held those thoughts. The courage to face this lie was the first step in uprooting it. In the quiet of the archives, Valerius performed a ritual of sovereignty. He took a piece of parchment and wrote down the terms of the old contract. Then, in a clear and resolute voice that echoed among the ancient books, he declared, "This contract signed in love but based on fear is, as of this moment, officially null and void." He took the parchment and burned it over a candle flame. As the fire consumed the old words, he felt a decades-old invisible weight lift from his shoulders. Then he took a fresh piece of parchment and wrote, "The new contract." It contained just one sentence: "I am living proof that prosperity and integrity are lifelong companions. Wealth flows through me to serve the greater good." This was not a mere symbolic act. It was an energetic event. Valerius had rewritten the source code. He had sent a new, clear, and sovereign directive to the universe. From that day on, his life transformed. Deals began to flow smoothly. Trustworthy partners appeared. He didn't work harder, but the results were miraculously different. He became one of the wealthiest and most respected merchants, a man who used his prosperity to help countless others, proving his new contract to be true. The law of the coder. Your life experiences are not the root problem. They are merely the output on the screen. The real issue and the real solution lies in the source code, the core beliefs, the unconscious energetic contracts that are running you. You are the architect of the system, not the repetitive thoughts within it. Your entire system, from the neurology of your brain to every cell in your body, is designed to be reprogrammable. You are not a finished product. You are inherently flexible. Liberation does not come from gathering more information. It begins with a sovereign decision. The moment you stop accepting the old script and declare with finality, "Now I decide what is true for me," you shift from being a victim of the code to being the coder. That is when the chains truly break. Practical exercise, the contract nullification ritual. This is a powerful ritual for you to reclaim your sovereign power. Perform it with ceremony and intention. Identify the buggy output. Look at an area of your life where a negative pattern repeats, e.g., always short on money. At the end of the month, relationships ending the same way, never getting the recognition you deserve. Trace the source code. Find a quiet place. Ask yourself this question with radical honesty. To get this result, what must I have believed to be true? What unconscious contract did I sign? Write down everything that comes up without judgment. Perhaps I'm not smart enough. Love always leads to pain. I must sacrifice myself for others. Or if I succeed, I'll be alone. Acknowledge its expiration. Look at the list you wrote. Recognize that this is not you. These are just old programs, outgrown clothes. Say aloud, "These are old contracts. They have served their purpose. They are now expired." Perform the sovereign annulment. Take a piece of paper and write down the old contract you most want to dissolve. Hold the paper in your hands and feel its weight. Then, with a powerful feeling of release, tear it to shreds or safely burn it. As you do, declare forcefully, "In the name of my sacred sovereignty, I hereby nullify and void this contract across all levels and all timelines. My power is returned to me. It is done." Draft the new contract. Take a clean, beautiful piece of paper. Write down your new contract, a core, empowering present tense belief. For example, "I am a brilliant steward of limitless abundance. Love comes to me with ease and brings me joy. My success inspires others." Read it every day as a reminder of the new truth you have chosen. You are the one holding the pen. The page is waiting. Begin to write Chapter 8, letting go to receive it all. On the shore of a crystal-clear, tranquil lake, a father was teaching his young daughter how to float. The little girl was terrified. The fear of sinking made her body rigid. She flailed her arms and legs in a panic, trying to fight the water to keep her head from going under. But the more she struggled, the faster she sank. To her, in that moment, the water was an enemy. The father didn't teach her another technique. He simply said gently, "Stop fighting the water, my love. Trust it, relax, and allow it to hold you." The girl, after a moment's hesitation, decided to try. She took a deep breath, leaned back, and most importantly, she consciously relaxed every tense muscle. She stopped fighting. She let go. And a miracle occurred. The moment she stopped seeing the water as an enemy and began to trust it, the lake, which had seemed to want to pull her down, now became a supportive bed holding her body effortlessly. She was floating. She did not conquer the water. She became one with it. In the creation of reality, the final and most powerful act is this same sacred surrender. Kalen was the greatest archer in the kingdom. His technique was flawless. His focus was unparalleled. He had spent a lifetime practicing the laws of creation. He visualized the arrow striking the bullseye, thought he felt the joy of victory as if it had already happened. Emotion, and he repeated that success in his mind 10,000 times programming. Now he stood before the final challenge of the grand tournament, a single arrow to hit an apple at an almost impossible distance. He had done all the inner work. He was aligned with the outcome. But as he drew his bow, a subtle tension crept into his body. It was attachment. It was the need to control the result. His mind began to calculate desperately, this wind, this angle, this tension. It must be perfect. Control is born from fear. The fear that if you don't force it, it won't happen. The signal he was now broadcasting was no longer one of trust, but one of lack. He released the arrow. It missed the target by a hair's breadth. He was granted a second chance. This time his attachment was even greater. He tried to control everything even more tightly. The second arrow flew even wider of the mark. His need for control had created an energetic dam blocking the natural flow of his skill and intention. From the stands, his old master, a legendary blind archer, called out his voice, containing no judgment. "Kalen, the arrow already knows the way. Your job is to let it fly." Those words were a key that unlocked a door in Kalen's awareness. He suddenly understood. His job was to choose the target to align with the result, to draw the bow with clear intention. But the moment the arrow left the string, that was the universe's job. His job was to trust the flight. He took his final arrow. He drew his bow, aimed at the target, and once again felt the joy of the apple already pierced. But this time, just before releasing, he did something different. He smiled and consciously let go. He resigned from the role of micromanager. He no longer cared about the how. He simply declared silently with his entire being, "I have done my part. I trust the process." And he released the string. It was not an act of force, but an act of surrendered trust. The arrow flew. A sudden gust of wind rose up, but the arrow seemed to magically adjust, riding the wind instead of fighting it. It struck the apple dead center, splitting it in two. Kalen won not because he controlled better. He won because he finally stopped controlling. He let go, and in that act he received it all. This surrender was also the secret of the scholar Alara. She had spent weeks trying to solve an ancient riddle. She read every scroll, analyzed every symbol, trying to force an answer with her intellect. Her mind became a tangled mess of stress. Finally exhausted, she declared, "I give up." She wasn't abandoning the riddle. She was abandoning the battle with it. She went out into her garden, forgot everything, and simply watched the flowers. The moment she completely let go, when her mind was no longer chasing the answer came to her. It appeared in her mind with perfect clarity and simplicity. By ceasing to search, she created the space to be found. The law of sacred surrender, letting go, is not giving up or failing. It is the highest level of energetic mastery. It is the transfer from the ego that wants to control to the soul that knows how to allow. As long as you are trying to control the how and the when, you are broadcasting a signal of fear and lack. Your job is singular: to align your frequency with your desired reality, to feel it, to know it is real. Then you must let go. Trust that the field of energy with its infinite intelligence will orchestrate the details more perfectly than you could ever imagine. Attachment and obsession over the outcome create a dam that blocks the very flow you are inviting. Letting go doesn't cancel your desire. It proves that you believe it is already yours to such a degree that you no longer need to worry about it. You don't make the miracle happen. You simply stop preventing it. Practical exercise. The river release ritual. This is a ritual for you to practice the art of conscious surrender, transferring your desire to a greater wisdom. Complete your inner work. Think of a desire you have been working with. You have set a clear intention, felt the emotion of its fulfillment, and reinforced your belief in it. Enter the visual space. Close your eyes and imagine you are standing alone on the bank of a great, gentle, and powerfully flowing river. This river is the flow of life, of the universe, of all possibility. Crystallize your desire. Imagine that your desire, with all the love and intention you have poured into it, crystallizes in the palm of your hand into a beautiful object. It could be a glowing gem, a radiant lotus flower, or a shimmering golden leaf. Gaze at it for a moment, knowing that this was your part, and you have done it well, the sacred act of release. Now perform the most important act. Slowly and gently place the gem or the leaf onto the surface of the water. Watch as the river immediately accepts it and carries it away. Do not try to follow where it goes or how it will reach its destination. Simply witness it being taken care of by a greater flow, the declaration of trust. As the object disappears from sight, place a hand on your heart, take a deep breath, and exhale with a sigh of relief. Say silently or aloud, "I have done my part. The rest I release to you. I trust the flow. I trust the perfect unfolding. I let go." Feel the lightness spread through your body. The burden of having to make it happen is lifted. You have not abandoned your desire. You have entrusted it to the one power capable of fulfilling it most perfectly. Now your only job is to live in gratitude and watch for the miracles to arrive on your shore. Chapter 9. Becoming the frequency of your desire. In the center of an ancient town square hung a giant bronze bell, silent upon its tower for a generation. It was said to be broken. The strongest men had tried striking it with massive mallets, but all it produced was a dull, sad thud. The bell had forgotten its song. One day a traveling musician came to town. He didn't touch the bell. Instead, he stood in the middle of the square, took out a small silver flute, and began to play a single note. The tone was clear, pure, and held with unshakable stability. At first, nothing happened, but the musician persisted playing that one note without wavering. Gradually, a tiny hum began to emanate from the bronze bell. The hum grew into a resonance, and the resonance grew stronger until the entire massive bell began to vibrate powerfully, singing on its own its long-forgotten, magnificent song, which echoed throughout the square. The musician didn't attract the sound from the bell. He simply broadcast a frequency that was perfectly compatible with its inherent nature, awakening what had been dormant within. You do not attract what you want. You awaken it by becoming a vibrational match. Anya was a young painter of undeniable talent. She yearned to become the royal painter, the most prestigious position in the kingdom. She did everything she thought was necessary to attract that reality. She painted portraits of the king and queen from faded images. She thought about life in the palace every day. She prayed for the opportunity every night. But while her mind was aimed at the palace, her entire being was broadcasting a completely different signal. Her dominant emotions were those of anonymity, of lack, and a touch of envy for the current royal painter. She longed for the feeling of being recognized, yet she felt small and unseen. She wanted to be on the royal channel, but was stuck on the channel of the unknown. Her signal was dissonant, it was contradictory and chaotic, and the universe, with its absolute precision, responded to that exact chaotic signal. Her talent went unnoticed, and the palace gates remained firmly closed. Her life didn't change because the signal she broadcast didn't change. She took her work to a reclusive master painter famous for his ability to capture the soul of his subjects. The master looked at her paintings, then looked directly into Anya's eyes and said, "You have the technique of a master, but you paint with the hands of a beggar. You want to paint a king, but you are vibrating at the frequency of someone standing outside the castle gates, looking in." He explained, "The universe doesn't bring you what you want. It brings you what you are compatible with. You cannot attract that position. You must become the royal painter before you are given the title. Stop asking, 'How do I get it?' and start asking, 'The version of me who already is the royal painter, what frequency is she vibrating at?'" That question changed everything. Anya stopped struggling to change her external circumstances. She focused all her efforts on calibrating her internal frequency. She asked herself, "How does the royal painter feel?" She concluded she feels a quiet confidence, an inner dignity, a great responsibility, and a deep insight into human nature. Anya began to practice that state. She no longer painted with longing, she painted with majesty. She treated her common subjects, the baker, the flower girl, with the same reverence and focus she would give a duke or a duchess. Her thoughts: "I am an artist of profound insight." Her emotions, dignity, confidence, and her actions painting with reverence were for the first time all pointing in the same direction. Her signal became clear, coherent, and powerful. The change in her work was almost tangible. Her paintings now possessed a depth and a regal air they had never had before. One day, a high-ranking courtier to the king on a secret trip through the town happened to see a portrait Anya had painted of an old fisherman. He was stunned not by the technique, but by the soul, the dignity, and the wisdom that Anya had seen and captured. This was precisely what the king was looking for, an insight that the current painter accustomed only to glamour could not provide. The courtier arranged a meeting, and Anya, when she stood before the king, no longer felt small. She had been practicing the frequency of the royal painter for so long that it had now become who she was. She didn't need to attract the position anymore. She had simply stepped into the role for which she had become a perfect vibrational match. The law of vibrational compatibility. The universe doesn't operate on attraction. It operates on compatibility. You do not pull something from a distance toward you. Instead, you tune your inner frequency to become compatible with a version of reality where that thing is already true. You do not get what you want. You get who you are a match to. You are a 24/7 energetic broadcasting station. If your life is stuck, it is because you are broadcasting a contradictory signal, an energetic dissonance. Alignment does not demand perfection. It demands coherence, where your thoughts, feelings, and actions all tell the same story. When you are on the right channel, the corresponding program must be broadcast. That is the law. Practical exercise. The frequency calibration process. Becoming energetically compatible is not a matter of luck. It is a skill that can be trained. Follow this intentional fine-tuning process. Clarify your desired channel. Choose a specific reality you want to experience. Give it a clear name, like a radio channel. For example, channel thriving and fulfilled career, or channel loving and harmonious relationship. Identify the channel's frequency. Close your eyes and ask the crucial question: the version of me who is living on this channel, what is their dominant emotional state? How do they feel most of the time? Write down those emotional keywords. For example, confident, creative, respected, peaceful, worthy. This is your target frequency. Audit your current signal. Now be radically honest. In relation to this topic, what have your dominant emotions been for the past few days? Write them down without judgment. For example, insecure, tired, self-doubting, anxious. Bridge the vibrational gap. Compare the two lists. Where is the gap? Your job is not to leap from insecure to confident in one step. Choose the most accessible feeling from your target list. Perhaps it's peaceful. Take 5 minutes right now, close your eyes, and intentionally generate the feeling of peace in your body. embody it. Stabilize the new state. Your job is to repeat step 4 many times a day. Every time you notice you are on the old frequency, gently shift your focus and consciously generate the emotion of the new frequency. Each time you do this, you are training your energetic muscles, making the new state more familiar and stable. When the new frequency becomes your dominant state, you have become compatible, and then external reality has no choice but to reflect it. Chapter 10. You are the architect of reality. Long ago, 2 architects were tasked with building 2 identical bridges across a deep canyon. The first architect was a man of action. He immediately gathered his workers, ordered the quarrying of stone, and began to build. He worked tirelessly, but because he had no master blueprint in his mind, the project was constantly plagued by problems. A few arches where misaligned pillars were weak, and he had to continuously fix mistakes as they appeared. He was reacting to the material world. The second architect, for the first full month, seemed to do nothing at all. He just sat on the edge of the chasm, eyes closed or paced back and forth, holding nothing but an empty scroll of parchment. The first architect privately scoffed at his laziness. But the second architect was not being lazy. He was building the bridge perfectly in his mind. He walked across that bridge hundreds of times in his imagination. He felt the weight of every stone, heard the wind whistle through the railings, and saw the image of happy townspeople crossing back and forth. Only when the blueprint in his inner world was complete did he begin construction. The work proceeded smoothly, swiftly, and without a single error, because every worker knew the precise location of every stone. They were not building a bridge. They were simply assembling a bridge that already existed in the architect's mind. In your life, you can choose to be a builder who constantly fixes problems, or you can choose to be the architect who completes the work in the mind before it manifests in the material world. Queen Annalise inherited a kingdom drowning in despair. The land was barren, the people were listless, and the treasury was empty. A woman of strong will. Annalise immediately threw herself into action. She issued new decrees, tried to rally the people with speeches, and initiated new trade routes, but all her efforts were like salt in the sea. The people could not build a future they could not see. They were trapped in the reality of their poverty. She was trying to build a magnificent castle with mud bricks and no blueprint. She was waiting for external evidence before she would believe, while her people were waiting for the very same thing. An old advisor who had served her grandfather offered no economic strategy. Instead, he led her to the highest tower of the castle, overlooking the kingdom, and said, "Your Majesty, before you can build a prosperous kingdom, you must first live in it. Build it in your mind so clearly that you can smell the fresh bread from bakeries that do not yet exist." Annalise understood the profound message. She ceased her fruitless external activities. Instead, she dedicated 1 hour each day to becoming the architect of the new kingdom. She closed her eyes and began construction in the workshop of her mind. Her visualization was not a vague daydream. It was a conscious process of programming. She didn't just see golden fields of wheat. She felt the cool breeze blowing through them. She didn't just think of bustling marketplaces. She heard the laughter and the bartering of merchants and customers. She smelled the fresh timber of ships being built in the harbor. Most importantly, she felt the peace, pride, and abundance in the hearts of every citizen. She rehearsed this new reality so vividly that her brain and nervous system began to accept it as truth. The brain does not distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. She was installing a memory from the future. When Annalise finished her design session and opened her eyes, she was no longer the queen of a failing kingdom. She was the queen of a prosperous kingdom in its formative stages. Her vision became as sharp as a diamond. When she spoke to her generals and merchants, she no longer spoke of hope. She spoke of plans. She described her vision with such clarity and emotion that they began to see it too. Her clarity was contagious. A detailed mental blueprint had commanded reality to form around it. The farmers, inspired by a vision they could believe in, found new ways to irrigate. The artisans began creating unique goods. The energy of the entire kingdom shifted because its architect had first built the foundation solidly in the unseen realm. She did not wait for the evidence. She became the evidence. This power was also the secret of Elias, a violinist who was once paralyzed by stage fright. His hands would tremble whenever he performed. His teacher told him to stop practicing on his instrument. Instead, every day he was to sit in a chair, close his eyes, and rehearse in his mind. He imagined a perfect performance, felt his fingers gliding skillfully over the strings, heard every clear note, and saw the radiant faces in the audience. He repeated this memory until the feeling of confidence and success became more familiar to his nervous system than the fear. When he walked onto the real stage, his body did not activate the program of fear. It activated the program of the perfect rehearsal. His hands were steady. The melody flowed, because in his mind he had already succeeded hundreds of times. The law of the architect vision builds the world. Action merely constructs it. Everything you see in the material world was once an idea, a blueprint in the unseen realm. Visualization is not make-believe. It is the process of programming reality. When you visualize with enough emotion and detail, your brain reacts as if it's truly happening, rewiring your nervous system to be compatible with that reality. You do not wait to see it before you believe it. You believe, feel, and live it in your inner world so intensely that the outer world must comply. The quantum field responds to clarity. A vague blueprint creates a vague result. Stop waiting for external proof. Become the proof. What you build in your mind will become the ground upon which you walk. Practical exercise, building in the workshop of the mind. This is the exercise for you to use your most powerful tool, your intentional imagination. Define your project. Choose a specific reality you want to create. Be as clear as possible. For example, a creative job that brings me joy and abundant income. Enter the workshop. Find a quiet place, close your eyes, and relax. Enter a receptive state where the analytical mind can temporarily quiet down. Construct with all 5 senses. Now begin to build. Don't just be a spectator watching a movie. Be the main character. Sight. What do you see around you in this new reality? Look at the colors, the light, the objects, the people. Make it detailed. Sound. What sounds do you hear? The laughter of a loved one, the satisfying click of a keyboard, beautiful music or peaceful silence. Touch. What do you feel on your skin? A warm handshake, the fabric of the clothes you're wearing, the chair you're sitting in. Smell and taste. Are there any distinct aromas? The smell of coffee, of new books, of fresh air after rain add the cement of emotion. This is the most crucial step. While experiencing all of the above, how do you feel? Generate the feeling of satisfaction, joy, freedom, safety, and deep gratitude. Let this emotion soak into every cell of your being. Rehearse a key scene. Choose one moment that represents your fulfilled reality, e.g., receiving a congratulatory email celebrating your success with loved ones. Replay this short scene in your mind several times until it feels vivid and real. Seal it with gratitude. When you are finished, don't rush to open your eyes. Take a moment to feel sincere gratitude for the experience you just had. Thank the universe as if it were already done. Gratitude is the final seal, confirming that the blueprint has been sent. Repeat this creative process daily. You are not daydreaming. You are doing the real work. You are being an architect. Chapter 11. The Forgotten Language. 2 mighty legions faced each other across a vast field. The commander of the first legion was a great orator. He stood before his troops and delivered a long, logical, and persuasive speech. He spoke of honor, of family, of duty. The soldiers listened, and they felt motivated. The commander of the second legion said very little. He simply gave a silent signal. And then a soldier raised the legion's banner, a golden eagle on a field of crimson cloth, a symbol their fathers and grandfathers had fought and died beneath. The moment they saw that symbol, a primal roar rose from the chests of thousands of soldiers. Their courage, loyalty, and strength were instantly activated, requiring no explanation. The speech was for the analytical mind. The eagle banner was for the soul. It bypassed all logic to speak directly to the deepest, most primal, and most powerful part of their being. In the creation of reality, there is a language just as powerful. It is the language of symbols. Elian was a young scholar who had read and understood every principle of self-mastery. He wanted to be courageous, so he read every philosophical book on courage. He wrote affirmations like, "I am the embodiment of courage," hundreds of times a day. Intellectually, he was an expert on courage. In reality, however, when faced with a situation that required true bravery, such as defending a weaker person before the council or confronting an injustice, Elian would freeze. There was a vast gap between his mental understanding and his embodied action. His analytical mind understood the words, but his subconscious, his body was not receiving the message. He sought the guidance of an old weaver, a woman famous for weaving symbols of power into her tapestries. She looked at Elian's stacks of books and scrolls of affirmations and smiled gently. "Young man," she said, "you are trying to speak to the lion in your heart with the language of books. The lion does not understand complex arguments. It understands the image of the sun, the feeling of the mountain." She explained that the subconscious, the great engine of reality creation, does not speak in words. It speaks in images, feelings, and symbols. To reprogram it effectively, he had to use its native tongue. "Close your eyes," she said. "When you think of unshakable courage, what is the first image that comes to your mind?" Elian was quiet for a moment. Then he described it. "I see an ancient oak tree standing alone on a windswept cliff. Its roots dig deep into the earth, and it stands firm against every storm." "Then that is your language," the old woman said. "That is your symbol." Elian had found the key. He stopped trying to think his way into being brave. Instead, he began to use the technology of the symbol. He drew a simple icon of the oak on the cliff. He carved that symbol onto a small piece of wood that he always kept in his pocket. Every night before sleep, he would hold the piece of wood, close his eyes, and not think the word courage. Instead, he became the oak tree. He felt his roots digging deep into the earth, felt the unshakable stability in his core. He was charging the symbol with energy and emotion. The oak symbol became a shortcut, an energetic switch. In the council meetings, whenever he felt the familiar fear begin to rise, he would simply touch the piece of wood in his pocket. Instantly, the image and the feeling of the steadfast oak were activated, bypassing his logical, panicking mind. The energy of stability flooded his body. His voice became steady. His arguments became clear. He hadn't learned anything new. He had simply found the right language to awaken the power that was already within him. We don't just use symbols. We are living symbols. King Alaric ascended to the throne young and insecure. Though he wore the crown, his posture was a symbol of doubt, shoulders, slightly slumped eyes, often downcast. And the court responded to that exact symbol with a lack of respect and obedience. His advisor did not teach him politics. He taught him how to be the symbol of a king. He guided Alaric in how to walk with his head high, his gaze direct, every gesture deliberate and purposeful. He had the king wear the royal regalia, not as a costume, but as a second skin. When Alaric began to consciously design and embody the symbol of a confident and stable leader, a magical change occurred. The court began to see a king, and they began to act like loyal subjects. The outer world changed its response when the symbol Alaric broadcasted changed. The law of the symbolic code. Your subconscious speaks in symbols. This is a primal language capable of bypassing the resistance of the analytical mind and going straight to your energetic control center. Symbols are not decorations. They are a form of ancient technology for installing beliefs and creating reality. You are constantly being programmed by unconscious symbols. To reclaim your sovereignty, you must begin to consciously choose your own symbols. Everything about you is a living symbol broadcasting a signal. By becoming a living symbol of what you desire, you command the world to respond to you in a new way. A properly chosen and charged symbol becomes a shortcut to instantly change your state. Practical exercise: creating and activating your power symbol. This is a ritual for you to create your own personal technology, a key to unlock the energetic door you desire. Identify the desired program. Choose a quality, a state, or a reality you wish to embody. Name it clearly. For example, inner peace, creative flow, perfect health. Discover your personal symbol. Find a quiet place and close your eyes. Ask your subconscious, if inner peace were an image, a symbol, what would it be? Don't try to think or analyze. Let the very first image surface naturally. It could be a still lake, a burning candle, a circle, a dove, a lotus flower. Trust the first image. Make the symbol tangible. Take out paper and a pen and draw that symbol in your own way. It doesn't need to be a work of art. It just needs to be yours. Alternatively, find a physical object in nature that represents it, a smooth, round pebble, a feather you found. This is the step of making the invisible visible. Charge the symbol with energy. Hold your symbol, the drawing or the object in your palm. Close your eyes and generate the feeling of your desired state. Feel the energy of inner peace flowing from your heart, through your arm and directly into the symbol. Imagine it absorbing and storing that energy, beginning to glow. Do this for several minutes. Use it as an energetic switch. Place your symbol somewhere you can easily see it every day, on your desk, by your bed, or carry it in your pocket. Whenever you see or touch it, take a moment to breathe and reconnect with the feeling it represents. The symbol has now become your personal switch, a shortcut to instantly return you to the frequency you have chosen. Chapter 12. Sacred Geometry, the Language of Creation. In a high mountain valley, a fierce snowstorm enveloped everything. Looking through the window, a young boy saw only a raging white chaos. It seemed random, angry, and utterly disordered. His grandmother, a wise elder, saw the confusion in his eyes. She silently opened the window and held out a piece of black velvet, catching a single snowflake. Then she brought it to the boy to see under a magnifying glass. The boy held his breath. In the heart of that chaotic storm was an unimaginable perfection, a six-pointed star of absolute symmetry, adorned with intricate patterns that no silversmith could ever match. Each snowflake was a unique masterpiece, yet all of them obeyed the same six-sided law. "Never confuse a storm with the snowflakes that create it," the old woman said softly. "The universe is never truly chaotic. It is merely an infinite number of perfect orders dancing together." Behind every manifestation of life, there exists a language of order and design. That language is sacred geometry. Linnea was a master gardener, capable of turning the most barren plots into lush oases. But this time she was given a seemingly impossible challenge, a desolate garden that everyone believed was cursed. It was a place of chaos. Plants grew tangled together, fighting for light and space. The energy of the place was heavy and stagnant. Linnea tried all her techniques, amending the soil, fertilizing, pruning, but the more she tried to impose an order of her own, the more the garden seemed to resist. The plants remained stunted, the flowers refused to bloom. She was trying to shout her commands at a place that did not understand her language. In desperation, she sought out an old astronomer who lived alone on a hilltop, a man who spent his life observing the movement of the stars. He didn't ask Linnea about soil or fertilizer. Instead, he showed her his drawings, a drawing of the perfect orbits of the planets, a drawing of the spiral of a distant galaxy. Then he placed next to it a nautilus shell with the exact same spiral and a sunflower whose seeds were arranged in that same golden ratio. "Do you see," he said, "from the greatest to the smallest, the universe speaks only one language. It is the language of harmony, of proportion, of flow. You are trying to force the garden, but you have forgotten to listen to its inherent design." Linnea returned to the garden with completely new eyes. She no longer saw chaos. She sat down in silence and began to observe. She realized the small stream didn't want to flow in the straight line she had dug. It wanted to meander in a spiral curve. She saw that the wildflowers didn't grow randomly. They grew in hexagonal clusters like a honeycomb. She realized she had been working against the garden's natural flow. From that day on, Linnea was no longer a gardener. She became an energy designer. She filled in the straight ditch and allowed the stream to follow its natural curve. She planted shrubs in spirals following the energy flow of the land. She created interlocking circular flower beds mimicking the flower of life symbol she had seen in the structure of a snowflake. The garden responded almost immediately. It was as if it could finally breathe, could finally live according to its true nature. The plants began to thrive, no longer competing but existing in harmony. The energy of the place became light, clear, and vibrant. Linnea hadn't fixed the garden. She had simply reminded it of its own sacred blueprint, and it healed itself. We are not separate from this blueprint. We are it. Soren, an aging dancer, felt his body growing stiff and weak. He believed he was fighting a losing battle against nature, but his teacher didn't make him practice more. Instead, he had Soren meditate each day on the torus energy field around his body, a continuous flow of energy moving up from his feet, out the crown of his head, then circling around and back up again, creating a perfect self-sustaining loop. By consciously aligning his awareness with the natural energetic shape of his own body, Soren restored the flow. His flexibility and strength returned. He realized he was never broken. He had simply forgotten his own sacred shape. The law of the cosmic blueprint. The universe is not chaotic. It is exquisitely designed. The language of that design is sacred geometry. Patterns like the flower of life, the golden ratio, or the torus field are not just mathematics. They are consciousness crystallized into form. Each shape carries a frequency and an intelligence. You are a living expression of this cosmic architecture. The chaos and blockages in your life are often signs that your energy is flowing against this natural order. When you consciously observe, meditate on, and live in harmony with the principles of sacred geometry, the flow is restored. You do not have to create reality from scratch. You need only to resonate with the shape from which it is already built. Practical exercise, meditating with the flower of life. This exercise helps you reconnect with the original blueprint of life, restoring harmony and order in your own energy field. Observe the symbol. Find a clear image of the flower of life symbol. Spend a few minutes gazing at it. Don't try to analyze it with your mind. Let your eyes wander freely along its curves, exploring the perfectly interlocking circles. Allow its harmony to soak into your awareness. Enter a meditative state. Find a quiet place. Sit comfortably and close your eyes. Visualize the flower of life symbol appearing before you, radiating a soft, clear light. Merge with the blueprint. Now imagine that symbol slowly moving toward you and merging into your body and your energy field. Feel that you are this perfect grid. Imagine every cell, every molecule of your being rearranging itself, vibrating in accordance with the sacred order of the symbol. Feel the restored harmony. Sit in this state and just feel. Feel the balance, the connection, and the wholeness. Know that you are reminding your system of its original perfect state. Any blockages or chaos within are being gently rearranged to align with the original blueprint. Carry this order into your life. When you are finished, open your eyes slowly. Carry this sense of order and connection with you into your day. Look at the world around you and try to find the sacred geometric patterns in a flower, a leaf, or a ripple in water. Remember, you were never a random occurrence. You are a symphony of geometry brought to life by soul. Chapter 13, The Invisible Library. There once was a village built around an ancient well. The well water was clear and cool, but it was finite. The villagers lived in a state of constant worry, carefully rationing every bucket, and in dry seasons they prayed for rain so the well would not run dry. Their entire understanding of water was confined to that well. One day, a little girl, chasing a colorful butterfly, wandered into the forest behind the village, a place she had never been before. After walking for some time, she heard a strange sound, a steady, deep murmur. Curious, she followed the sound. And then she stood frozen before a magnificent sight, a great river sparkling in the sun, flowing powerfully and endlessly. There was more water there than she could have ever imagined. The little girl realized that while the entire village was trying to manage a finite resource, an infinite supply had always been there, right beside them, waiting to be discovered. Your thinking mind is like that well. It contains your known experiences, your logic, and your memories. But there is a great river of infinite knowledge that is always flowing, and your task is not to dig the well deeper, but to learn to listen and find the path to that river. Dr. Elian was a brilliant physician. His library contained every known medical text, and his knowledge of disease was unparalleled. He believed in logic, in analysis, and in the proven. His thinking mind was his sharpest tool. But then a strange illness swept through the town. It presented with contradictory symptoms that defied all current medical understanding. Elian worked day and night. He scoured his library, compared notes, and tried every rational remedy. But the patients only grew weaker. His well of knowledge for the first time had run dry. The more he analyzed, the more helpless he felt. In the midst of this, an old herbalist who lived in the mountains was invited to consult. She brought no books. She simply sat by a patient's bed, closed her eyes, and became completely still. After a long while, she spoke to Elian, her voice serene. "Your mind is searching for an answer in old rooms, but this disease is a new guest. The answer for it is not in books. It is in the silence of life itself." Elian, at the end of his rope, decided to try a different way. He put away all his books. He sat down next to a patient, not as a doctor trying to find a solution, but as a humble channel asking to listen. He quieted his analytical mind. He stopped asking why or how. Instead, he gently placed a question into the inner stillness: what is the truth of the healing here? And then he let go. He expected nothing. In that quiet space, an answer arrived. It was not a chain of logical reasoning. It was an image that appeared whole and clear in his mind's eye, the image of a small, bright blue wildflower, a common flower that grew by the stream, which no one had ever considered medicinal. Along with the image came a deep and certain knowing. It was a direct transmission, not a conclusion. Though it seemed irrational, Elian decided to trust the message. He trusted the clarity and peace that came with it. He went himself to gather the flowers, prepared them in the way his intuition guided him, and gave them to his patients. Their recovery was miraculously swift. Elian had learned a great lesson. The greatest breakthroughs come not from recycling old knowledge, but from the ability to become still enough to access the universe's invisible library. This wisdom always arrives as a whole. The artisan Lena had spent weeks trying to design a breakthrough ceramic vase. She had made dozens of sketches, trying to piece ideas together, but they all felt forced. Exhausted, she gave up thinking. She went outside and sat watching children play, her mind completely empty. Suddenly, as she watched a child toss a ball into the air, the image of the perfect vase with a unique and balanced curve appeared in her mind, fully formed. She hadn't created it piece by piece. The entire blueprint was downloaded in a moment of non-effort. The law of the intuitive channel. There is a field of infinite intelligence, also known as the universal mind, that contains all answers and solutions. Truth is not something to be acquired, it is something to be accessed. Your task is not to think more, but to quiet the noise of the thinking mind so you can hear the signal from the universal mind. This wisdom does not arrive as a step-by-step logical explanation. It comes as a deep knowing, a holistic vision, an instantaneous clarity. You do not chase wisdom, you clear a space for it. When you learn to trust and act on this inner guidance, you are reclaiming your intellectual sovereignty. You stop seeking permission from the outer world and begin to live from an inner certainty. Practical exercise. Connecting to the invisible library. This is a process for you to practice accessing the infinite flow of wisdom. Refine the question. Think of an area in your life where you need guidance. Don't ask yes/no questions. Refine it into a single, open-ended, humble, and powerful question. For example, what is my next step for my greatest growth and joy? Or what is the deepest lesson I am meant to learn from this situation? Enter the sacred silence. Find a quiet place. Close your eyes. Spend 5 minutes simply focusing on your breath, allowing the waves of your mind to gradually become still. Imagine you are standing before the door of a great silent and sacred library. Ask with reverence. When you feel still, gently release your question into that space of awareness. Don't demand an answer. Ask the question as if you are planting a seed in fertile soil with faith that it will sprout. Release and become the listener. This is the crucial step. Immediately after asking, completely let it go. Don't wait, don't search, don't analyze. Become an open space, a state of pure listening. Your awareness is like a satellite dish. The stiller it is, the more subtle the signals it can receive. Acknowledge the first message. The answer may come immediately or sometime later in many forms. A sudden word in your mind, an image, a warm feeling in your body, a memory, or simply a knowing without reason. Trust the first, gentlest message. Do not let your logical mind dismiss it because it's too simple or strange. Write it down, honor it with action. Wisdom requires action to be validated. Take one small step, no matter how tiny, based on the guidance you received. This action is your thank you and the way you strengthen your channel, making it clearer and more reliable for the future. Chapter 14. Synchronicity, the universe's feedback. A traveler had to cross a dense forest not marked on any map. At first, he tried to use his compass and his willpower, forcing a straight line through the thorny undergrowth. He quickly became exhausted, lost, and desperate. Collapsing beneath a tree, he surrendered his attempt to control. As his mind quieted, he began to notice things his haste had previously obscured. He saw a bright blue bird singing on a nearby branch. It finished its song, then flew to another tree not far away. Curious, the traveler followed. When he approached the second tree, another blue bird appeared, as if waiting for him, then flew deeper into the woods. He realized this was no coincidence. These birds were showing him the way. They were tracing an invisible path, a natural flow through the forest. He stopped trying to create his own path and began to trust the path of the birds. They led him with ease and safety to the other side of the forest. Those birds were not the destination, but they were the signs. Synchronicity in life is like those bluebirds. It is not random luck. It is the language of the universe showing you the path of harmony when you are still enough to notice. Elara was a weaver of tapestries, and she held a burning desire to find a legendary dye known as moonlight blue. It was said to be extracted from a flower that bloomed only on a single full moon night, each year in a place unknown. Initially, Elara approached this task with her logical mind. She buried herself in the library, reading ancient scrolls and analyzing old maps. She gathered a great deal of information, but it was contradictory and vague. The more she tried to search for the answer, the more distant it felt. Her mind was full of analysis, but her energy field was broadcasting a signal of lack and doubt. Recognizing her stalemate, Alara decided to change her strategy. She stopped searching on the outside and began the work of alignment on the inside. She returned to her loom. Every day, instead of reading books, she wove her dream of the color blue. She didn't weave from memory. She wove from imagination and feeling. She felt the joy and gratitude as if she had already found the flowers. She felt the softness of the threads already dyed in that magical blue. She had shifted from the frequency of seeking to the frequency of already having. And then the universe began to talk. As her energy became clear and coherent, coincidental events began to appear. One day at the market, she overheard two strangers speaking of a place called the Valley of Silence. The name resonated within her with an inexplicable familiarity. A few days later, while cleaning, she found her mother's old flute. She unconsciously put it to her lips, and a long-forgotten melody emerged containing the lyric, "Where the silver stream hums beneath the moon." The following week, during a walk, a sudden rain shower forced her to take shelter under a rock ledge. When the rain stopped, she looked down at her feet and saw a quartz stone of a peculiar shape. It was identical to a landmark on one of the old maps. She had seen a landmark at the very entrance to the Valley of Silence. Alara no longer believed in coincidence. She understood that these were whispers, mirrors reflecting her inner alignment. They were proof that she was on the right path. She no longer needed a logical map. She had a compass of synchronicity. She followed the signs. They led her to a valley not named on any conventional map, where a stream shimmered like silver. She arrived on the night of the full moon, and there, under the brilliant moonlight, an entire hillside glowed with an ethereal blue light. They were the flowers of legend. She hadn't found them. She had become compatible with them, and the universe had arranged a perfect meeting. Signs are not just guidance, they are also feedback. Ronan, a blacksmith, was debating whether to invest all his savings in a rare batch of steel. His logical mind said yes, because the profit would be immense, but in his heart he felt an unclear resistance. As he was heating an iron bar in the forge, thinking about the decision, a spark suddenly flew out and scorched the business plan he had written. At the same moment, he heard the church bell toll, a sound normally reserved for special holidays or warnings. Ronan paused. He recognized the message. The fire-rushed action would destroy his plan. The bell was a warning, an invitation to slow down and listen. He heeded the feedback, decided not to invest, and later discovered the steel had a hidden flaw that would have bankrupted him. Synchronicity had saved him. It had mirrored the resistance in his heart that he had been trying to ignore. The law of cosmic feedback. Meaningful coincidences are not random. They are the non-verbal language of reality, messages sent to you as feedback on your energetic state. Synchronicity is inner alignment made visible on the outside. The clearer and more coherent you are in your energy, the more signs you will notice. They are mileposts telling you that you are on the right track, or gentle warnings when you are veering from your path of harmony. The question is not, is the universe talking, but am I still enough to listen? You do not control the signs. You can only cultivate the inner clarity for the universe to respond to you. Their appearance is proof that a beautiful dialogue between you and the universe has begun. Practical exercise. Opening the channel of synchronistic awareness. This exercise helps you train your ability to notice and interpret the subtle language of the universe. Set the intention to notice. In the morning, take a moment to set a simple intention. Today, I am open to noticing signs and synchronicities. I am paying attention to the whispers of the universe. This action is like turning on the radio and scanning for a channel. Create pockets of stillness. Try to have at least a few 5-minute pockets of stillness in your day. Do nothing, just breathe and observe. Stillness is the necessary space for subtle messages to be heard. Journal the magic moments. Keep a small notebook. Whenever a coincidence happens, you think of a song and then hear it. You're pondering a decision and see a relevant message on a billboard. You see repeating numbers, write it down. Don't try to analyze it immediately, simply acknowledge it. Ask about the feedback, not the meaning. At the end of the day, review what you've written. Instead of asking rigidly, "What does this mean?" ask a deeper question. What was my inner state when this happened? What was I thinking or feeling? What is this sign reflecting back about my frequency at that moment? Act with gratitude. If a sign brings you clarity or guidance, take one small action to honor it, even if it's just a silent thank you. This action is your confirmation that I am listening, and it will encourage the universe to continue the dialogue with you in ever richer ways. Chapter 15. The Dance of Magnetic Attraction. Imagine a great river full of water and power, but without banks to define it, that river would be nothing but a chaotic swamp. Its energy would spread out aimlessly, creating no flow, carrying no boat to its destination. It is energy without structure. Now imagine a pair of riverbanks built solidly, clearly, and with great intention. But if there were no river to flow through them, they would be just a dry and lifeless ditch. It is structure without life. True power, true beauty is born only when the river flows between its banks. The energy of the flow fills and animates the structure. The structure of the banks directs and makes the energy useful. In the universe and within you, all creation is the dance of the river and its banks. Marcus was a master blacksmith. His skill was unparalleled and his will was as hard as steel. He was tasked with forging a pair of magnificent city gates, a work to last for ages. Marcus, a man of action and structure, threw himself into the work with all his might. He worked 18 hours a day. His hammer blows were perfectly precise. His blueprint was detailed to the millimeter. He tried to control every variable, forcing the metal to bend to his will. He was the perfect embodiment of the masculine energy, intention, action, structure, direction. He was building perfect riverbanks, but he was burning out. His creativity ran dry. The gates he produced, while technically flawless, exuded a cold and rigid feeling. They had strength but no soul. They were a dry ditch. The more he tried, the more stuck he felt. In his exhaustion, he visited his sister Lyra, a potter who lived by a lake. He complained of his creative block and his fatigue. Lyra offered no advice on forging techniques. She simply pointed silently to the surface of the lake, still as a mirror. "Look," she said softly. "The lake does not try to reflect the moon. It simply is still and open, allowing the moon to fill it. Its power lies in its receptivity. You are trying to command beauty, but beauty cannot be commanded. It can only be invited." Marcus was stunned. He realized he had only banks but no river. He had intention but lacked receptivity. He had action but lacked the flow of intuition. He returned to his forge a different man. He still held his clear blueprint and intention masculine. But before he picked up his hammer, he took time to be still. He placed his hands on the cold metal, closed his eyes, and did not command it. He asked it, "What shape do you want to become?" He opened himself to receive ideas, sudden inspirations, feminine, and the flow returned. Instead of rigid straight lines, soft curves began to appear in his designs. Instead of just strength, elegant and delicate patterns began to form under his hands. He worked fewer hours, but his effectiveness and joy multiplied. The finished city gates were an unprecedented masterpiece. They were at once strong and majestic, yet as graceful and elegant as a work of art. They were the perfect union of the strength of the banks and the beauty of the river. Marcus had stopped chasing perfection. He had become a state of balance, and from that state, perfection found him with ease. This imbalance also occurs in the opposite direction. Elian was a poet with a sensitive soul. He was full of poetic ideas, deep emotions, and subtle intuitions. He was a vast river of feminine energy, but he rarely managed to write a complete poem. His ideas just floated in his mind like a swamp with no structure, no direction, no banks to define them. He waited passively for inspiration until one day he realized that his dreams would forever remain vapor if he did not create a vessel to hold them. he decided to introduce masculine energy into his life. He set a simple structure. Every morning he would sit at his desk and write for 1 hour, whether inspiration was present or not. This small act created a pair of banks, and his river of ideas for the first time had a clear flow. Poetry began to pour onto the page. By balancing his receptivity with a deliberate act of structure, he transformed from a dreamer into a creator. The law of magnetic balance. Realization comes not from effort, but from magnetic attraction. This attraction is born from the harmonious balance of two primal creative energies. Masculine energy, the bank's intention, structure, action, direction. Feminine energy, the river flow, intuition, receptivity, attraction. When you have only action without receptivity, you will burn out and become stuck. When you have only ideas without structure, you will drift aimlessly. Magnetic attraction does not beg or chase. It is born from an inner state of knowing masculine and trusting feminine. When you balance these two energies, you stop forcing and start attracting. Practical exercise, diagnosing and balancing your energy. This exercise helps you recognize your imbalance and consciously restore your natural magnetic attraction. Self-diagnosis. Sit quietly and look at a goal or an area of your life where you feel stuck. Answer honestly. Are you feeling burned out, stressed, trying to control everything, working hard with disproportionate results? If yes, you are in an excess of masculine energy. Are you feeling vague, passive, indecisive, full of ideas, but not knowing where to start and waiting for something to happen? If yes, you are in an excess of feminine energy. Balancing exercise. If overly masculine, to cultivate your feminine energy, spend 15 minutes each day doing something without a purpose. For example, take a walk in a park with no destination. Listen to a piece of music just to feel, or simply sit still and ask, what is my intuition trying to tell me right now? Learn to allow instead of just doing. Balancing exercise. If overly feminine, to activate your masculine energy, choose one clear and simple intention for the day. For example, today I will write 100 words of my story. Then take one structured action to complete it. Create small banks for your river. Unification meditation. Close your eyes. Visualize a brilliant golden pillar of light representing masculine energy intention, the sun running straight down your spine. Then visualize a shimmering silver stream of water representing feminine energy flow, the moon gently spiraling around that pillar of light. Watch them dance, flowing together, complementing without overwhelming each other, creating a harmonious and powerful magnetic field around you. Stop chasing. Create the container with your clear intention and expand your frequency of receptivity to fill it. That is the dance of creation. That is elegant power in action. Chapter 16, Belief is the command, doubt is the saboteur. On a thin wire stretched across a deep canyon, a tightrope artist was performing the walk of his life. Every movement was perfect. His focus was absolute. His breath was in rhythm with the wind. He wasn't just walking on the wire, he was balance made manifest. But when he was just a few steps from his destination, a voice from the crowd below shouted, "Don't look down." In that fleeting moment, the artist's perfect concentration was broken. A question that had not existed before infiltrated his mind. What if I fall? It was not a fact. It was merely a possibility. But in that instant, the seed of doubt was planted. His body tensed slightly, and a small wobble appeared on the wire. He didn't fall. But the grace, the confidence, and the perfect dance with the void had vanished. Doubt didn't kill the artist, but it killed the magic. It is a system error, a signal noise capable of collapsing an entire perfect creation. Finian was a shipbuilder with a grand vision to create a ship that could glide across the sea as lightly as a seagull. The blueprint in his mind was a masterpiece of grace and speed. He began the work with passion and dedication, but hidden in Finian's subconscious was a program of sabotage. He was haunted by the memory of his master, a brilliant craftsman whose greatest ship had sunk in a storm. That memory had installed a subtle doubt. He told himself he had to be realistic. He began to alter his perfect design. I must add a layer of oak here just in case, he thought. I must reinforce these braces for the worst-case scenario. He constantly double-checked joints that were already perfect. He was acting not from faith in his vision, but from the fear of someone else's failure. These actions were not harmless. They were doubt made manifest. Every precautionary reinforcement made the ship heavier, stripping away the grace of the original design. Finian didn't realize that he was personally sabotaging his masterpiece in the name of caution. An old sea captain, a woman who had sailed every ocean, came to see the ship as it neared completion. She did not praise its sturdiness. She simply placed a hand on its hull and said, "This ship was built by fear, not by faith. It was designed not to sink, rather than designed to fly across the water." Her words awakened Finian. He realized he had been more loyal to the fear of the past than to the vision of his future. His doubt wasn't just a feeling, it had become the very wood and nails that were compromising his ship. He made a sovereign decision. He halted all work. For weeks, he had his craftsmen dismantle the heavy reinforcements that fear had added. He returned to the grace and faith of his original design. He no longer negotiated with reality. He commanded it through his certainty. The ship, when launched, was a marvel of grace and speed. On its maiden voyage, it met a great storm, but instead of fighting it heavily, its perfect design allowed it to dance with the waves. It weathered the storm with ease. The moment Finian stopped planning for failure, success became inevitable. Doubt is often subtle. Isabella opened an art gallery believing it would succeed, but her actions told a different story. She felt compelled to explain the meaning of every painting to her guests, for fear they wouldn't understand. She constantly checked her books at the end of the day, with an anxious heart needing external proof to feel secure. When the gallery was empty, she mentally rehearsed the script of having to close down. Her words were of belief, but her energy was one of urgency. Until she realized this and changed, she decided to act as if the gallery were already a renowned art destination. She stopped explaining and started sharing stories with confidence. She stopped checking the revenue and used that time to create. She welcomed the silence not with fear, but with gratitude for the time to be creative. Her calm, confident energy became magnetic. Patrons came not just for the art, but for the peace she exuded. The law of absolute certainty. Doubt is not a part of who you are. It is a system glitch, a self-sabotaging program. The universe does not respond to hope. It responds to energetic certainty. Belief is not blind positive thinking. It is holding the frequency of a completed outcome regardless of what your external senses are reporting. The state of absolute belief is the moment you stop needing external proof, because you have become the living proof from within. It is a solid calm, a quiet power that needs no validation. You do not need to eliminate all fear. You simply need to decide where your loyalty lies, with the vision of your future or with the scars of your past. Doubt asks, what if it doesn't work? Faith answers, watch me. Practical exercise. Hunting and neutralizing the saboteur. This exercise helps you become a guardian of your inner garden, pulling the weeds of doubt the moment they sprout. Define your vision. Clearly name a reality you are in the process of creating. For example, a thriving and meaningful business. Become the observer. For the next 24 hours, practice observing yourself without judgment. Keep a small notebook and jot down every time you catch yourself engaging in a subtle act of doubt, feeling compelled to over-explain or justify yourself. Constantly checking for results. Phone, email, social media with a sense of anxiety. Mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios. What if? acting from a sense of urgency, haste, or desperation. Name and refuse to rehearse. Each time you recognize one of these behaviors, pause for a second. Name it neutrally. Ah, this is the doubt program. Then declare silently but firmly, I see you, but I refuse to give you my energy. I choose certainty. Take a belief-based action. Immediately after refusing the doubt, take one small action, even if it's only for 30 seconds, that the version of you who has already succeeded would take. If you're worried about money, take 1 minute to write down 3 things you are grateful for. If you're worried about a project, spend 5 minutes visualizing the feeling of its brilliant success. If you're worried about a relationship, send a thought of love instead of a thought of fear. Answer with a question of faith. Whenever your mind poses the question of doubt, what if it doesn't work? Immediately counter it with the question of faith. And how amazing will it be when it does? Let your body feel the answer to that question. Train your loyalty to always face the future. The moment you stop asking if something is possible is the moment it begins to become inevitable. Chapter 17. Vision is the command you give the universe. Imagine a ship adrift on the sea, at night surrounded by a thick fog and chaotic waves. The crew is in a panic, turning the rudder, helplessly trying to fight each wave as it comes. They are completely lost because they have no point of reference. Suddenly in the distance, a powerful, steady, and unmistakable beam of light cuts through the fog. It is the lighthouse. The lighthouse does not clear the fog. It does not calm the sea. It simply is broadcasting a non-negotiable signal of its position. Instantly, the chaos on the ship ceases. The captain now has a direction. He no longer fights each individual wave. He simply holds a steady course toward the light. Your current circumstances are the fog and the waves. Your vision is the lighthouse. A clear and unwavering vision does not eliminate challenges, but it renders them irrelevant. It is a command that organizes chaos. Kael was the young leader of a nomadic tribe. For generations, his people had lived in a loop of survival. They moved from one barren land to another, always reacting to circumstances, a dried-up river, a harsh winter. Their vision was a repetition of the past. When Kael suggested they find a place to build a permanent home, the elders shook their heads. Our destiny is to wander, they said. Our ancestors lived this way. They were imprisoned not by chains, but by the absence of a new vision. One night, in a state of deep meditation, Kael stopped praying for a change. He received a command from his own soul. He saw a vision. It was not a vague hope. It was a detailed, vivid, and emotional blueprint. He saw a lush green valley sheltered by mountains where a city of white stone was built. He heard the sound of children laughing in a central square. He felt the pride and safety in the eyes of his people. He walked the streets that did not yet exist. When Kael opened his eyes, he knew it was not a dream. It was a memory from the future. He stopped arguing with the elders about if they should settle. Instead, he began to speak and act from the reality of that vision. He no longer asked, "How will we build the city?" He declared, "In our city, the great hall will be built of oak and will face the sunrise." He described it with such certainty and detail that those who listened began to see it too. His clarity was powerful. He was no longer a passive observer asking, "What's next?" He had become an architect who was deciding what was next. He gathered a small group of those who believed in his vision. Their journey was not an aimless search, but a journey back to the place they had already seen in their minds. Kael's unshakable vision became their map and their compass. When they faced hardship, his certainty gave strength to them all. Finally, they found the valley. It was exactly as he had seen it. When the news was sent back, the entire tribe, inspired by the living proof of a vision made real, followed. They built the great city not from hope, but from a blueprint one man had held with non-negotiable certainty. This power of vision was also the secret of the sculptor Anya. Before ever touching a massive block of marble, she would spend weeks just sitting and looking at it. An apprentice asked her what she was looking for. She replied, "I am not looking, I am remembering." She visualized the perfect statue already existing inside the stone so intensely that it was no longer a future possibility, but a present truth obscured by excess rock. Her job was not to create something new. Her job was to liberate what she had already seen. Therefore, every strike of her chisel was filled with confidence and certainty. She was not carving a statue. She was removing everything that was not the statue. That is the power of one who acts from a memory of the future, the law of the visual command. The future does not happen to you. It happens through you. Every vision you hold firmly in your mind is a command you are giving to the quantum field. The universe responds to precision, not ambiguity. A detailed vision, deeply felt and consistently practiced, becomes a directive that cannot be ignored. Do not let your current circumstances dilute your signal. They are merely an old weather report. Your vision is the command for tomorrow's weather. When you hold a vision long enough, it becomes a memory, and the universe has no choice but to rearrange itself to match what you remember. Stop asking and start deciding. You are the architect. Practical exercise. Drafting the master blueprint. This is not an exercise in daydreaming. This is an act of power where you formally submit your design to the universe. Decide, don't wish, take a special journal. On the first page, write the title, "The Master Blueprint for My Reality." Instead of writing, "I want" or "I hope," begin with a sovereign declaration, "I decide and command a reality where I am." Program the new human. This is the most important part. Don't just list the things you want to have, a car, a house. Describe in detail the person you will be to have them naturally. Example, in this reality, I am courageous, confident, and act with decisiveness. I manage my time and energy with wisdom. I wake up each day with a clear purpose and a grateful heart. Paint the emotional landscape. Below that description, write down the dominant emotional states of this reality. Use the most powerful words you can think of. For example, absolute freedom, radiant joy, deep peace, complete fulfillment. Practice the memory from the future. Every day, spend 10 minutes reading this blueprint. Then close your eyes. Don't try to reach for it. Do the opposite, remember it. Choose a specific scene from that reality and live in it with all your senses. Feel those dominant emotions in every cell of your body. Repeat this until it no longer feels like an exercise, but like a familiar memory you are returning to. Act from the vision. Throughout your day, frequently ask yourself, what would the person in my blueprint do right now? And then do that. Even if it's a small action, it is a vote for your new reality. Every aligned action is a physical brick, materializing your vision. Give the universe a clear, confident, and coherent blueprint. The moment you take command of your vision, the future has no choice but to obey. Chapter 18. Sacred action is reality programming. A hermit lived in a small house in the middle of a field of waist-high weeds. One day, a visitor came and asked, "Sir, how can I get to your house through this field?" The hermit smiled and pointed to a clear path pressed firmly into the earth. "I walked it into being," he said. The visitor was surprised. "What do you mean you didn't build it?" "No," the hermit replied. "Every morning I walk the exact same route from the gate to my door. At first there were only faint footprints in the grass, but after many weeks the grass learned and stopped growing there. After many months the earth itself compacted. Now it is a path that anyone can see and follow. I did not build a path. I repeated an action with intention, and the path formed itself. Every small action, when repeated with intention, is more than just an action. It is a ritual. It is a physical command sent to reality, teaching the world how to grow around you." Alara was a perfumer. She had a clear vision to create a perfume that could capture the feeling of the moment before the dawn, a scent of stillness, hope, and new beginnings. She had mastered her mind. She visualized it, felt it, and believed in it. However, when she set to work blending the essential oils, the result was always missing something. The scent was pleasant, but it lacked magic. It couldn't stir the soul of another in the way she had felt it in her vision. Her belief was still floating in the air. It had not been anchored to the earth. She sought out a blind old woman known as the Wind Listener. The old woman didn't need to smell Alara's vials of perfume. She only asked one question. Have you told this story to your hands, to your body, or are you only telling it to your mind? She explained that the subconscious, which controls the body and the energy field, does not learn through logic. It learns through patterns, rhythm, and embodied emotion. You need a ritual, she said, a physical act to teach your body that this new reality is normal and safe. Alara understood. She created a ritual of the dawn. Every morning, just before the sun appeared, she would go out into her garden. First, she would light a single white candle, a symbolic act for the first light of day. Next, she would take 3 deep breaths, feeling the cool, fresh air of early morning, embodying the energy of a new start. Finally, she would take a jasmine flower, a key ingredient in her formula, and whisper her intention into it. You are peace. You are hope. You are the beginning. This ritual was not a superstitious act. It was a process of programming. The act of lighting the candle and breathing became a pattern that signaled to her subconscious, this is the time to activate the energy of peace. Whispering into the flower connected her invisible intention to a tangible object. That ritual changed Alara on a cellular level. It taught her body what before the dawn felt like. When she returned to her workshop, her hands moved differently. Her intuition became sharper. She was no longer trying to create the scent. She was simply allowing it to flow through her, and the perfume she created became a masterpiece. Those who smelled it didn't just perceive a scent. They felt a state of being. They felt peace. The ritual didn't change the ingredients. It changed the artisan, and the artisan infused that change into her creation. The truth is, you are already a master of ritual. The only question is whether your rituals are conscious or not. Consider Kyle, a merchant who always wondered why his days were so full of stress. He didn't realize he was performing a highly effective destructive ritual every morning, waking up immediately thinking of his list of problems, groaning, and then drinking his coffee while reading negative news. This pattern of thought, problems, emotion, anxiety, and action, reading bad news, was a perfect ritual for programming a terrible day. When he realized this, he designed a new ritual: waking up, taking 1 minute to think of 3 things he was grateful for, and drinking his coffee while looking out the window, consciously feeling peace. He replaced an unconscious ritual with a conscious one, and his world changed accordingly. The law of sacred embodiment. Ritual is not superstition. It is embodied repetition. It is the technology for teaching your body and your subconscious which reality to believe in. The subconscious learns through patterns and emotions, and a ritual is the perfect combination of both. A small act repeated with intention has the power to change you from the inside out. And when you change, your external reality has no choice but to reflect the new you. Ritual is the bridge between the invisible world of belief and the physical world of experience. It is where intention meets the body. The universe does not speak in words. It speaks in patterns and frequencies. What you repeat with reverence becomes the world you inhabit. Practical exercise. Designing your creative ritual. This exercise helps you turn everyday actions into powerful reality programming tools. Identify the code to install. Choose one core state or quality you wish to become. Keep it very simple. For example, creative confidence, inner peace, abundant energy. Choose a physical anchor action. Select an extremely simple physical action that you can easily perform every day. This action will become the physical anchor for your intention. For example, taking your first sip of water in the morning, applying hand lotion, closing your office door to begin work, touching a personal symbol you have created, assign meaning and emotion. This is the step that turns a normal act into a ritual. Just before performing the action, set a clear intention. For example, before taking that first sip of water, say silently, "This act is the beginning of a day filled with abundant energy." Perform the ritual with presence. Now perform the action slowly and mindfully. As you drink the water, truly feel the energy spreading through your body. As you apply the lotion, truly feel the confidence soaking into your skin. Marry the physical action with the internal feeling. Repeat with reverence. Commit to performing this small ritual every day. Consistency is more important than intensity. Treat it not as a chore, but as a sacred moment you are taking to program the person you choose to be. You are walking your path, and with every repetition, that path becomes a little clearer. Chapter 19. You are the channel, not the source. In an ancient cathedral stood a giant stained glass window. On overcast days, when there was no sunlight, the window was just a patch of darkness, its colors dull and lifeless. It could not create light on its own. But when the first rays of the morning sun shone through, a miracle occurred. The window, once a silent object, suddenly came alive. It did not create the light, nor did it resist the light. It simply allowed the pure light of the sun to pass through it. And in that process, it transformed the white light into a symphony of color and story. It painted the cathedral's stone floor with brilliant strokes of blue, red, and gold. Its beauty lay not in what it was, but in what it allowed something greater to express through it. You are not the source of the light. You are that stained glass window. Your genius lies not in trying to create light, but in becoming clear enough to let the light of the universe flow through you. Lysander was a great orator, a man who could move the hearts of people with his words. His kingdom was facing a crisis divided by fear and mistrust. Everyone looked to Lysander to deliver a speech that would heal all wounds. The pressure weighed heavily upon him. He locked himself in his study for days trying to write the perfect speech. He arranged logical arguments, searched for eloquent words, and constructed powerful sentences. He was trying to use his finite intellect to solve a problem of the soul. But everything he wrote seemed hollow. It had cleverness, but no power. It was a window with no sun shining through. Exhausted and in despair, Lysander gave up. He threw his scrolls aside. He went to the empty great hall where he was to speak, and simply sat down in silence. He was no longer trying to be the problem solver. He just posed a humble question into the stillness: what words truly need to be heard at this time? And then he got out of the way. He resigned from the role of creator and opened himself to become a channel. He didn't hear an external voice. Instead, a frequency shift occurred within him. A profound sense of peace, an expansion of compassion, and an unshakable certainty flooded his being. And from that space, ideas and sentences began to flow into his awareness. They didn't come in a logical sequence. They arrived as a fully woven tapestry, a whole truth. They were simpler, yet far more profound than anything he had tried to write. When Lysander stood before all the people, he needed no notes. He was no longer an orator trying to persuade. He was a channel allowing truth to flow. The words that came from his mouth didn't just touch their minds. They touched the heart of every person. They didn't plant a new idea. They awakened a truth that had been sleeping within them. The kingdom was healed not by Lysander's brilliance, but by the wisdom that was allowed to flow through him when he was humble enough to realize he was not the source. This state of being a channel is not something supernatural. You have experienced it. It's when you are comforting a friend and the most perfect words just come to you without thinking. It's when you are struggling with a problem and a creative solution flashes into your mind while you're taking a shower. It is those moments when you know something without being able to explain why. Those were the times you accidentally got out of the way and allowed a greater mind to step in. Your work now is to learn to do this consciously. The law of the divine channel. There is a field of infinite intelligence, an infinite mind that is always available to guide you. You are not the source of creation. You are a channel for it. Your greatest breakthroughs are not created by the striving of the ego. They are received in moments of allowance. To open the channel, you must learn to get out of the way. The process is simple, quiet. The noise of the mind. Ask your question clearly and with reverence release control over the answer and trust what comes. One true insight received through this channel can save you months, even years of struggle. The universe does not want you to figure everything out on your own. It is waiting for you to become clear enough so that it can show you the way. Practical exercise. Opening your channel. This exercise helps you practice the art of getting out of the way and opening yourself to guidance from a higher wisdom. Create a sacred space. Set aside 5 to 10 minutes in a quiet place. This is not just about finding a place free of physical noise, but about creating an intentional, energetic space. You can light a candle or simply close your eyes and silently declare, I create this space to connect with my highest wisdom. Clarify the question. Identify an area where you need clarity. Write your question down on paper. Ask from a place of humility, a desire to be led rather than a place of wanting to control. Instead of how do I make more money, try which path will allow prosperity to express through me most joyfully and meaningfully, the act of getting out of the way. After you have your question, take the most important step. Read your question aloud and then say with conviction, I am now getting out of the way. I am ready to listen. Imagine yourself taking a step back in your mind, creating an empty, receptive space before you. Acknowledge, don't judge, with a notebook and pen ready. Remain in a state of open listening. Don't look for a voice. Pay attention to the first subtle messages. It could be a word or phrase that pops into your head, an image in your mind's eye, a feeling in your body, warmth, relief, goosebumps, a sudden memory, an urge to do something. Your job is to record exactly what comes without adding, subtracting, or judging whether it makes sense. Act to solidify the connection. Review what you have written. Choose one thing, no matter how small, that you can act on today. If you receive the word water, go drink a glass of water or walk by a lake. If you received an image of an old friend, send them a message. This action is a powerful thank you. It says to the universe, I received the message, I trust it. Please continue to guide me. In every act of trust makes your channel stronger. Stop trying to be brilliant. Start allowing brilliance to flow through you. You are not alone on this journey. You are a channel for the universe to express itself. Chapter 20. Gratitude is the frequency of abundance. Once a father gave his 2 sons each a bag of precious seeds and an identical plot of land. The elder brother, who always focused on what he lacked, held up the bag of seeds and lamented, "Is this all there are? How can I possibly create a great garden from this?" He sowed the seeds with a feeling of reluctance and scarcity. His garden grew, but the plants were stunted and yielded only a modest harvest. The younger brother, upon receiving his bag of seeds, looked at them with awe and reverence. He whispered, "How miraculous! The life of an entire future garden is here in my hands." He sowed each seed with a heart full of gratitude. He was grateful for the earth that received the seeds. He was grateful for the sun that nourished them. He was grateful for the rain that gave them life. His garden grew with an almost surreal abundance. The trees were heavy with fruit. The flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, and the harvest was more bountiful than anyone could have imagined. The seeds were the same. The land was the same. The only difference was the energetic frequency that each brother had planted along with them. Complaint is the frequency of lack. Gratitude is the frequency of abundance, and it is the most fertile fertilizer for the garden of reality. King Alaric had brought peace and stability to his kingdom. There were no more wars, the people had enough food, and the laws were respected. By all measures, it was a success. But the king still felt something was missing. There was sufficiency but not elation. There was peace but not vibrancy. The kingdom seemed to be standing still. The king sought out a wise old woman who lived in the forest known as the Keeper of the Fire. He asked her about grand projects or new laws he should enact to bring prosperity. The old woman didn't answer his question. She simply asked one of her own, "Your Majesty, when was the last time you truly felt gratitude for your kingdom?" Alaric was taken aback. He began to list his responsibilities, the things he had done for his people. "No," the old woman interrupted. "I did not ask what you have done. I asked what you have felt. Are you grateful for the laughter of the children in the marketplace? Are you grateful for the strength of the castle walls that protect your people?" The king was stunned. He realized he had been so focused on managing problems and preventing risks that he had forgotten to appreciate what he already had. He had been living in the frequency of maintenance, not the frequency of abundance. He understood that gratitude is not a passive emotion felt after receiving something. It is a metaphysical technology, an active frequency capable of multiplying what already is. Returning to the palace, Alaric did not issue a new law. He issued a festival of gratitude. For 1 week, all heavy labor was paused. All citizens were invited to come together to celebrate and express gratitude for what they had. The king himself led the way. He walked the streets not as a king on inspection, but as a father admiring his family. He thanked the baker for the fragrant smell of bread, the mason for the solid stones, the farmers for the golden grain. The energy of the entire kingdom shifted. The frequency of just enough was replaced by the frequency of overflowing. And after the festival, miracles began to happen. New trade routes opened up naturally. Artisans began creating inspiring new works of art. And the following year's harvest was unexplainably bountiful. The kingdom hadn't received new resources. It had simply amplified its existing resources by bathing them in the frequency of gratitude. The ultimate alchemy of gratitude is to be grateful for what has not yet happened, as if it were already true. Lyra, a young woman, desired a loving partner. She had done all the inner work, but a feeling of waiting still lingered. Instead of hoping, she began a new ritual. Every night before sleep, she would write in a journal, "I am so deeply grateful for the wonderful understanding and humorous partner who is here with me now. I am grateful for the laughter we share." She was not pretending. She was practicing feeling gratitude for a reality she had decided was hers. She was sending the most powerful signal possible. I am no longer waiting. I am ready. It is already here. The energy of seeking was replaced by the energy of acknowledging, and the peace, joy, and self-possession she exuded became an irresistible magnet. Before long, she met a man who was exactly as she had been grateful for. She hadn't attracted him. She had become energetically compatible with the love she had already claimed as her own through gratitude. The law of grateful resonance. Gratitude is not a mood. It is a metaphysical technology. It is the frequency of abundance. It is the energetic signal that says to the universe, I have, I am, it is already here. You do not wait for the result to be grateful. You are grateful in advance to lock in the belief that the result is inevitable. Emotionalized gratitude closes the gap between wanting and having. It is your way of telling the universe, I am ready, I am a match. And when you say that with your entire being, reality has no choice but to agree. Practical exercise. The alchemy of gratitude. This is the final and perhaps most important practice helping you turn gratitude into your most powerful creative tool. Part 1. Activating what is feeling at a cellular level. Find a quiet place. Don't just list things you're grateful for in your head. Choose one single thing. It could be the hands holding this book, the air you are breathing, or a happy memory. Close your eyes and truly step into the feeling of gratitude for it. Don't just think about it. Let the feeling of gratitude rise up in your chest. Let it spread like a warm wave through your entire body to the tips of your fingers and toes. Let every cell of your body be bathed in this frequency. Stay in that state for 2 to 3 minutes. Part 2. Gratitude for what is coming. The ultimate alchemy. Now maintaining that emotional state of gratitude, gently shift your attention to a desire you are creating. Change your language and your feeling from wanting to acknowledging. Say silently or write down the following sentence filling in the blank. I am so deeply and profoundly grateful that your desired reality has manifested perfectly and completely in my life. This is the most important step. Feel that gratitude as if you just received the good news. Feel the relief. Feel the joy. Feel the peace of knowing it is done. You are not deceiving yourself. You are performing an act of absolute faith. You are sending the clearest possible signal, thank you for the delivery. End each day with this ritual. Begin each day with this ritual. Gratitude is the frequency of heaven on earth. It is the language of miracles, and it is the natural state of a soul that has remembered it already, has everything. Chapter 21, Your being is the ultimate command. Observe a candle, a fire, and the sun. A candle must strive to shine. It consumes itself, flickers in the wind, and its light is weak. It is trying to be light. A fire is more powerful. It blazes brilliantly, but it requires constant tending. It demands fuel. It is working to create warmth. But the sun is different. The sun does not try to be hot. It does not work to radiate light. The sun does not need to practice gratitude or hold a vision. The sun simply is light. It is warmth. Its very being is its power. It radiates effortlessly because that is its nature. Throughout this journey you have learned to be a candle, then a fire. Now it is time to remember that your true nature is the sun. Kyle, who went from being a nomadic leader to the founder of the prosperous city, Endless Valley, had mastered every principle. He was a master of vision, of belief, and of intentional action. His city was a testament to the power of creation, but a subtle insecurity remained. Kyle felt he had to constantly maintain this prosperity. He worked tirelessly, checking the granaries, issuing new laws, planning for the future. He was practicing the role of a wise king. But deep down, he feared that if he stopped doing everything, would collapse. He was still broadcasting a signal of effort. One day, an emissary from a distant kingdom, a place famous for its seemingly effortless peace and joy, came to visit. The emissary was not a warrior or a politician. He was an old gardener. Kyle, full of admiration, asked him the secret of their kingdom. How do you maintain such sustainable harmony? The gardener did not answer directly. He pointed to a rose blooming magnificently in Kyle's garden. Your Majesty, he said, we do not try to make this rose bloom. We simply become the perfect garden for it with fertile soil, enough sun, and enough water. When the garden is right, the rose has no choice but to express its most glorious nature. He looked at Kyle and continued, You have built a beautiful garden. Now stop trying to tend to every leaf. Simply be the sun for that garden. In that moment, Kyle understood the final truth. All the techniques he had learned, visualization, affirmation, ritual, were wonderful tools to help him change his state of being, but they were still just tools. The ultimate destination is not to master the tools. The ultimate destination is to become the state the tools point to. He had been acting as a leader of prosperity. Now he had to be prosperity. Khalil's style of leadership changed. He spent less time in meetings and more time walking through the city, simply enjoying and radiating an energy of peace and fulfillment. He no longer tried to solve every problem. He trusted the system and the people he had put in place. He was no longer sending the signal of prosperity. He was the signal. And paradoxically, the city thrived and self-regulated more smoothly than ever before. The moment he stopped searching for the answer to maintain success, that success became permanent. You have always been manifesting. This is not a new power you need to learn. From the moment you were born, you have been a broadcasting station. When you believed you weren't good enough, the universe honored that belief and reflected back situations to confirm it. When you felt anxious, the universe responded by giving you more things to be anxious about. You were already a master creator, just an unconscious one. The only difference now is that you do it with awareness. You can consciously decide what your signal is. The law of ultimate being. This is the final truth where all other laws merge. You do not send a signal. You are the signal. The universe does not respond to what you do, what you say, or what you want. It responds perfectly and impartially to who you have decided to be in this very moment. There is no frequency for trying or hoping. There is only the frequency of isness. Every reality is encoded to a state of being. Your job is not to chase the result. Your job is to decide who you are and then fully embody that code. The moment you stop looking for answers and results on the outside, you broadcast a signal of inevitability. You no longer wait for the evidence, you become the evidence. Stabilize your signal and let the world catch up. Practical exercise. Returning to being. This is not an exercise to do. It is a practice of being. It is the simplification of all that you have learned. Choose your beingness. Pick one single word that represents the person you have decided to be right now, not in the future, right now. For example, peace, freedom, love, abundance. Ask the question of being throughout your day. Whenever you face a choice, a situation, or an emotion, pause and ask one single question. What would the embodiment of peace do right now? How would the embodiment of freedom feel right now? What would the embodiment of love think right now? The non-effort action. The answer will come very simply. Don't try to create that feeling. Simply allow it. If the answer to the peace question is, they would take a deep breath, then just take a deep breath. If the answer to the freedom question is, they would relax their shoulders, then relax your shoulders. These are not actions to achieve a state. These are the actions of one who is already in that state. Stabilize the signal. Your only goal is to spend more moments throughout your day remembering and stabilizing in the frequency of being that you have chosen. Every time you choose to be instead of try, you are strengthening your ultimate signal. You have all the tools. You understand all the laws. Now set them aside. Stop trying to become. Simply be. You are the final command. You are the answer. You are the miracle. Chapter 22. You are the answer. Once upon a time, a young man was given an ancient map said to lead to the jewel of truth. The map led him across stormy oceans, through burning deserts, and over towering mountains. On his journey, he learned countless skills. He learned to read the stars, to find water in the desert, to master his fear in the darkness. He collected many tools, met many teachers, and became wiser and stronger. After many long years, the final clue on the map led him back to the very village where he had begun. The X marked a spot right under the floorboards of his childhood home. With a pounding heart, he pried open the old planks and found a small box. Inside the box, there was no jewel. There was only a simple, polished mirror. As he gazed into the mirror, he no longer saw a weary seeker. He saw a master, a man whose eyes held the wisdom of the desert, the strength of the ocean, and the stillness of the mountain peaks. He realized the journey was not to find the jewel. The journey was to transform the seeker into the jewel. The treasure was not at the end of the path. The treasure was the one who had walked the path. Silas had dedicated his entire life to a single purpose, to find the Temple of Eternal Stillness, a legendary place said to grant absolute peace to anyone who entered. He was the most diligent of seekers. He learned every meditation technique, practiced every ascetic discipline, and collected every spiritual text. His baggage was filled with tools, knowledge, and methods. But no matter how far he traveled or how much he learned, a subtle restlessness always remained. He always felt he was almost there, that just one more teacher, one more secret, one more tool would finally open the door. His very being had become that of a seeker, and the universe, in its perfect obedience, always gave him more things to seek. Finally, after decades, his journey led him to the foot of a great mountain where the temple was said to be. There he met an old woman sitting by a fire, doing nothing but enjoying its warmth. She was not a temple guardian or a sage. She was simply there. "Good woman," Silas asked, "what is the final secret to entering the temple?" The old woman looked at him, her kind eyes seeming to hold the whole sky. "Your baggage is too heavy," she said softly. "The temple does not have a door for you to unlock with a key. It only has a space for you to enter, but you cannot enter that space while still carrying all the tools you have collected to try and break down the door." Her words were like a thunderclap. Silas looked back on his journey and realized a terrifying truth. The seeking itself, the accumulation of tools, had become the final barrier. The need for one more thing was the very wall separating him from the temple. He understood. He sat down by the fire facing the old woman. He did not try to meditate. He did not repeat a mantra. He did not strive for stillness. He simply put all of his baggage down. He gave up the role of Silas the Great Seeker. He did nothing. He just was. And in that moment, a profound peace and eternal stillness greater than anything he had ever experienced in his meditations flooded his being. He realized the temple was not a place on a mountaintop. The temple of eternal stillness was the very space he had just allowed to exist within himself when he stopped searching for it. He looked at the old woman and smiled. A smile of homecoming. She smiled back. He didn't need to be ready. He only needed to decide that the search was over. The final transformation comes from a sovereign decision. Anya was a painter who always felt she was not ready to hold an exhibition. She always needed to learn one more technique, find one more source of inspiration. One day, tired of waiting, she made a decision not from confidence, but from being fed up with procrastinating. She declared, "My exhibition will be next month." That decision, not any new skill, became the engine. Her energy shifted. She completed her paintings with a new focus. The exhibition was a brilliant success, not because she was ready, but because she decided the time for waiting was over. The law of homecoming. The spiritual journey begins with seeking, but it must end with the realization that everything you were pursuing, peace, strength, love, clarity, was already a part of who you are. You are not destined to keep searching. You are destined to become the answer. At a certain point, acquiring more knowledge becomes a sophisticated form of procrastination. Mastery is silence, not the noise of constant learning. It is trusting your being so completely that you no longer need external signs of validation because your presence is the sign. When you stop chasing reality, begins to chase you. Practical exercise. The ritual of homecoming. This is not an exercise to do, but a declaration to become. This is the final ritual. Set down your baggage. Sit down in silence. Imagine all the books, the techniques, the methods, the workshops, the teachings you have collected on your journey. See them with deep gratitude, for they were the boats that carried you to this shore. Then imagine gently setting them all down beside you. You are not discarding them. You are simply no longer clinging to them for salvation. Make the final declaration. Place a hand on your heart. Take a deep breath and exhale slowly. Let a sovereign decision rise up from the deepest part of your being. Say these words silently or aloud, not as an affirmation to convince, but as a recognition of truth. The search is over. I no longer need another answer from the outside. I am the place I have always been searching for. I am the answer. Live from that state. From this day forward, practice living as one who has returned, not one who is still on the way. When a question arises, trust that the answer will bubble up from your inner stillness. When a challenge comes, trust that you are the strength to meet it. You do not need to find peace in the midst of the storm. You need only remember that you are the peace in the eye of the storm. The journey has brought you home. Welcome, Chapter 23. Certainty is the ultimate command. A young falconer was training his bird. When he released it, his heart was full of hope. He prayed the bird would return. His energy was one of anxiety and anticipation. The falcon, sensing this uncertainty, flew hesitantly, circling with indecision before coming back. But his master, a master falconer, broadcast a completely different energy. When he released his falcon to the sky, there was no hope in his posture. There was only a deep knowing and absolute stillness. He did not watch the bird with an anxious gaze. He simply held out his arm, knowing it was the only place the bird would land. His certainty was an energetic beacon that could not be ignored, and the falcon, sensing this unspoken command, flew powerfully, precisely, and returned to his arm without a moment's hesitation. The student was requesting, the master was commanding. The universe, like the falcon, does not respond to hope. It submits to certainty. Queen Isolde faced a seemingly insurmountable challenge. A great drought had ravaged her kingdom for years. The rivers had dried up, the land had cracked, and the people were slowly losing hope. She had done everything. She had prayed the act of hope. She had gathered her wisest advisors to make plans the act of logic. She had held a vision of rain the act of belief. But deep down she was still waiting for a sign from the sky. She still had backup plans, rationing the food supplies, preparing for an evacuation. A backup plan is a prayer for the failure of the main plan. Her energy still wavered. In her desperation, she sought out a hermit on the highest mountain, a man known as the Sky Speaker. She recounted all her efforts and asked, "What more must I do?" The hermit looked at her, his eyes as clear as the sky after a storm. "Your Majesty," he said, "you have hoped. You have believed, but you have not yet decided. The sky does not respond to a proposal. It responds to a command. Stop seeking the rain. Become the rain." Isolde understood the subtle but decisive difference. Belief still has a small gap between the believer and the thing believed in. Certainty is the complete collapse of that gap. She returned to her palace, no longer a queen waiting for rain. She was the embodiment of a coming downpour. She issued commands that made her entire court think she had lost her mind. She ordered all rationing plans to be cancelled. She commanded the granaries to be opened for a celebratory feast. She ordered the farmers to prepare irrigation channels for a flood, not just a light rain. She no longer looked to the sky for proof. She was acting from a reality where the proof already existed. Her certainty was a condensed, pure, and non-negotiable energetic signal. It was an unshakable inner reality to which the outer circumstances were forced to submit. For 3 days she held that state. She walked the palace with a fearsome calm. She spoke as if the fields were already green again. On the evening of the 3rd day, the sky, which had been clear for years, began to change. Dark clouds gathered from nowhere, converging over her kingdom as if obeying an invisible command. And then the rain began. It was not a drizzle. It was a deluge, a great flood of life matching the intensity of the queen's certainty. She did not attract the rain. She commanded it with her very being. Certainty is a practiced choice. Liam wanted to be a writer. He told everyone he believed in his ability, but he kept his stable accounting job just in case. That job was his plan B. a loud, energetic signal telling the universe, "I don't truly believe Plan A will work." His energy was divided until the day he made a decision. He didn't quit his job immediately, but he energetically burned the bridge. He stopped introducing himself as an accountant who wants to write. He began to embody the being of a writer in transition. That certainty condensed his energy. Writing opportunities began to appear because for the first time he was broadcasting a single clear signal, the law of the certain command. Certainty is not a mood, it is energetic dominance. It transcends even belief. It is the signal that says this is happening. The negotiation is over. It is not arrogance, but complete alignment with a truth you have chosen. Uncertainty scatters your energy into countless unwanted possibilities. Certainty condenses all your energy into a single point, creating a gravitational force capable of bending reality. Do not ask the universe if you can have it. Do not ask the past if you are worthy. Decide, lock it in, hold the signal, and let the world catch up. Practical exercise, locking in reality. This is the final practice, an act of ultimate sovereignty. Make the final decision, choose a reality you have worked with and are ready to make a command. Take a piece of paper and write your declaration like a royal decree in the present tense and with absolute finality. For example, I am the embodiment of perfect health and infinite energy, or prosperity is my natural and permanent state. No, I will be, no, I am becoming, only I am. Annihilate the energetic exits. Be honest with yourself. What is your backup plan? What fear is causing you to keep an exit door open? Identify them, then close your eyes and consciously cut the energetic cords connecting you to them. Say, I no longer need you. Plan A is the only reality. Feel the liberated space that opens up when you have no other option but success. Act from it is done. Choose one action you will take today, not to make it happen, but because it is already true. If your command is prosperity, donate a small amount of money with a feeling of abundance, not sacrifice. If your command is perfect health, sign up for a class that the healthy version of you would love. This action is a physical seal on your energetic command. Hold the signal, regardless of circumstances. From now on, when doubt or external reality tries to make you waver, do not engage them in debate. Simply place a hand on your heart and return to your inner truth. Silently repeat your command, it is done. Let the calm of your certainty be your answer to all chaos. You are no longer negotiating with reality. You are informing it of the new terms. Chapter 24. Embodiment is the final activation. A young luthier, after years of apprenticeship, finally completed his masterpiece lute. He brought it to his teacher, a great master, to seek his final approval. The master took the instrument, admired it from every angle, and plucked a few notes. Its sound was clear and deep. He nodded with satisfaction. "Master, what is the next lesson?" the apprentice asked eagerly. The master smiled. He did not answer. Instead, he slowly gathered all the apprentice's tools, the chisels, the planes, the measuring tools, and placed them in a wooden box. He closed the lid. Then he handed the perfect lute back to the apprentice. "There are no more lessons," the master said. "You now hold a perfect instrument. Now go and make music." This book was the process of you creating your instrument. You have learned how to choose your materials, belief, how to draft your design vision, how to tune your strings' energy and emotion, and how to practice repetition and ritual. Now the instrument is complete. The journey of seeking has ended. The journey of embodiment begins. The final activation is not in reading another chapter, learning another technique, or searching for one more secret. It is the moment you close this book. Take a deep breath and begin to walk in the world as an embodied frequency. Your work from now on is not to do more. You do not need to fix, strive, or try any harder. Your work is simply to be differently. Show up with the energy of one who is no longer searching, the energy of solid clarity, of one who does not flinch when the results seem delayed, of one who radiates the truth instead of having to explain it. You are no longer the student trying to pass a test. You are the energy field. The answers you once desperately sought on the outside will now flow naturally from you in conversation. The signs you once strained to find your very presence will now become the sign for others. Accept this new role. You are no longer auditioning for the next level. You are the next level. This is the face of mastery. You do not wait. You decide. You do not ask for permission. You lead. You do not explain. You are the way. You do not chase high vibrations. You radiate stability. The final truth, the truth that has been woven into every page of this journey, is profoundly simple. You are the frequency, and your life is the mirror that perfectly reflects that frequency. There is no secret deeper than this. There are no more theories to analyze. Now stop studying it and start living it. Embodiment is the final activation. There is no exercise for this chapter, because you are the practice. Your life is the page. Your being is the pen. There is nothing more to read here. Go and write your masterpiece. The journey through these pages has come to a close, but this is not an end. It is an activation point. Let this be an energetic milestone you can return to, not to learn more, but to remember the moment the old self dissolved and the new you was permanently activated. The shift doesn't begin someday. It doesn't begin when you feel ready or when the universe sends a clearer sign. It begins now. In this breath. Do not wait. Step out from these pages and walk in the world as living proof of what you have remembered, unconditionally, unhesitatingly. The trial period is over. Wavering frequencies, half-hearted beliefs, the experiments, all are in the past. Your frequency is now final. Your embodiment is now complete. The universe will begin to take you seriously because you have finally begun to take yourself seriously. And remember this above all else. You have read reality is not the authority. You are the authority. From this moment on, claim your role. You walk as the answer. You speak as the source. You move as the master. The journey is over, and now it truly begins.